This time, he was finally freed from that heavy burden. Xia Chun was capable, and his innate mental power was extremely high, thanks to the maximum support of the newly researched medicines. He had now reached the level of a Tier 2 evolver. Lin Shi had calculated that even without unlocking meditation, Xia Chun's mental power was enough for him to unlock the Tier 3 gene lock. As for Lin Shi, he had built a small base near the main government base. Lin Shi and the former Qi family members had moved to this new base. 2 years had passed. Lin Rongshuan, Lin Mingjin, Qin Shuang, Qi Yun, Qi Qiuyue, and the others had unlocked the Tier 6 gene lock. Meanwhile, the levels of the origin beasts remained the same as before. With the lack of origin matter outside, the evolution process of the origin beasts seemed to have paused, showing no changes. During that time, Lin Shi performed brain surgery on Lin Rongshuan. With Lin Siyuan's assistance, the surgery went very smoothly. Afterward, Lin Shi examined Lin Siyuan and discovered a small dark spot in his brain as well. Therefore, Lin Shi also performed surgery on Lin Siyuan. With astonishing speed, Lin Shi removed the dark spot without causing any harm to Lin Siyuan. Next, he examined Qi Yun, Qi Qiuyue, and the others, but found no dark spots in their brains. Lin Shi suspected that only those who used the treasure bowl and their descendants would have this phenomenon in their brains. This dark spot was very likely a form of control mechanism. Currently, only Lin Shi still had that dark spot in his brain. It wasn't that he didn't want the surgery, but the treasure bowl hadn't separated from him yet, and he felt it would introduce massive variables to the operation. So, until he found the next owner of the treasure bowl, he wouldn't undergo the surgery. Moreover, Lin Siyuan's Tier 6 level wasn't safe enough to perform the surgery on him yet. Currently, the high-level origin beast meat in Lin Shi's spatial storage was almost depleted. To raise everyone's level, he could only wait for the apocalypse to arrive. Fortunately, the apocalypse was only 3 months away. Right now, Lin Shi was looking for someone to inherit the treasure bowl. The old Taoist once said that when the treasure bowl is transferred to someone else, its 3 abilities would awaken and refresh when it transfers to another person at the same time. Back then, the old Taoist tricked a treasure bowl owner, forcing them to use reversing heaven and earth at a critical moment. But just as that person broke through to the 9th tier, the old Taoist killed them. Because of this, previous treasure bowl owners couldn't activate the reversing heaven and earth function. Lin Shi almost forgot that the person the old Taoist killed was his own unlucky ancestor. However, Lin Shi didn't care about this 10,000-year-old reincarnated grudge. In short, if the treasure bowl was transferred to someone else, the artifact wouldn't need to reawaken, and the reversing heaven and earth ability would be reactivated. Unless the treasure bowl's owner died, the artifact wouldn't separate from their body. This was a hidden danger that had to be kept in mind. For Lin Shi, the biggest variable was reversing heaven and earth. But there was no need to worry too much. This ability required absorbing a massive amount of origin power before activation. As long as the treasure bowl's owner didn't come into contact with origin power, the transfer would be relatively safe. After some consideration, Lin Shi decided to transfer the treasure bowl to one person, Qi Qiuheng. That's right, 2 years had passed, and Qi Qiuheng still wasn't dead. But by now, he had been tortured to a pulp by Qi Qiuyue and Lin Rongshuan. Lin Shi only had to offer, and Qi Qiuheng immediately agreed to accept the treasure bowl. Qi Qiuheng didn't care why Lin Shi was giving him this precious item, what his purpose was, or if it was a trap. He didn't care at all, because over the past 2 years, he had suffered enough torment. Qi Qiuheng was covered in blood, his body mangled, and his face looked even more horrifying than someone with severe burns. His once clear eyes were now bloodshot, fierce, and terrifying. For the past 2 years, Lin Rongshuan and Qi Qiuyue had used every possible method to torture him. One had lost his dearest sister, his closest relative in the world. The other had lost her most beloved, the love of her life. There was no way these two could show any mercy to Qi Qiuheng. The torture methods included, but were not limited to, slicing off pieces of his flesh and pouring agonizing liquid medicine over the wounds. His evolver physique and the medicine kept Qi Qiuheng awake without dying. Or they would lock him in a giant oven, roast him until he was nearly cooked, pull him out, and scrape off the cooked flesh. Right now, Chi Chiohung only had two choices, a glimmer of hope to survive or death. Either choice was better than his current state. So he agreed without hesitation. You're giving me the treasure bowl, and then you'll kill me, right? That way, the treasure bowl will be yours again, and you can open it whenever you want. Chi Chiohung's hoarse, grating voice sounded as gloomy as a devil from hell. Lin Shi calmly looked at him. In Chi Chiohung's eyes lay deep-seated hatred and resentment. Lin Shi had no doubt that given the chance, Chi Chiohung would definitely take revenge on him and the current Lin family. Help me do one thing. If you survive after it's done, I'll let you go. What thing? A glimmer of hope flashed in Chi Chiohung's eyes. Lin Shi remained silent. Naturally, it was to eliminate a nuisance, a pillar of another faction. Before transferring the treasure bowl to Chi Chiohung, he had to empty it and use up all the item duplication attempts. This was a prerequisite for transferring the treasure bowl to someone else. Wait until I transfer the treasure bowl to you, then I'll tell you. Lin Shi left the dungeon. After deciding on the person, Lin Shi wanted to start maximizing the treasure bowl's final function. First was all the supplies the Lin family had gathered at the base over the past 2 years. On the surface, the Lin family base wasn't as large as the government base, but its underground space was just as expansive. The underground space wasn't for people to live in. Lin Shi used it to store supplies. The entire Lin family warehouse was divided into an outer and an inner warehouse. The outer warehouse held regular supplies for the daily needs of the Lin family members. The inner warehouse was filled with origin weapons and low-level origin beast meat belonging to Lin Shi. The origin beast meat was preserved in a massive cold storage, keeping its high quality. Lin Shi often used this meat, which was useless to him now, to reward the younger generation who showed him respect and admiration, thereby raising the average level of the clan. Lin Shi rewarded fairly, regardless of whether they were from the branch families or the old Qi family elders. He was just in his rewards and punishments, and sometimes, if someone caught his eye, he'd reward them too. This gave Lin Shi immense influence and authority within the clan, especially among the youth. Many who originally had a higher level than him now had to submit. Some who used to look down on Lin Shi because he didn't stand out before, now deeply regretted putting on airs as elders. The underlying conflicts within the family were all handled by Chi Chiyue, Lin Shi's good uncle. Lin Shi didn't care what those elders thought. He only favored the loyal and nurtured potential. Currently, even Lao He was a Tier 4 evolver. And with Lin Siyuan's help, Lao He had grown a new arm to replace his old one. Lin Shi stepped into the base's inner warehouse. He hadn't used his duplication attempts in years, accumulating over 2,000 of them. Duplicated origin beast meat would lose its origin power, so Lin Shi didn't duplicate items containing origin power. He mainly duplicated high-end materials and origin weapons in his spatial storage. Even if he had a surplus of origin weapons, he could equip his subordinates with them. The same went for materials. After all, when the apocalypse arrived and origin matter exploded, high-level origin beasts wouldn't appear that quickly. Next were some rare metals, including those hard to gather even with modern technology, and some non-renewable resources. When assisting the government previously, Lin Shi had helped them duplicate supercomputers and equipment that would be hard to manufacture in a short time. At the same time, many devices were still sitting in Lin Shi's spatial storage. These things were too crucial for the country's future. They hoped Lin Shi could help secure them after the solar storm ended. Therefore, the transfer of the treasure bowl between him and Chi Chiohung would take place at the very beginning of the apocalypse. After the solar storm ended, Lin Shi duplicated a massive batch, almost filling the inner warehouse. With a few dozen attempts left, he went to the outer warehouse to duplicate some relatively rare supplies. After using up all his duplication attempts, Lin Shi returned to his residence. Lin Shi's private residential area was also the core restricted zone of the current Lin family. This place included a beast-rearing area and Lin Shi's daily living quarters. All the origin beasts from Lin Shi's spatial storage were currently living in the beast area. Every day, Xiaobai was responsible for maintaining order among the origin beasts, keeping them from running wild in the Lin family base. Qin Shuang personally took care of feeding them. Fortunately, the scale of the origin beast pack wasn't large right now, so taking care of them was quite simple. As for the newly born origin beast cubs, if the mother agreed, Lin Shi would entrust them to some reliable clan members. The Demon King was almost always by Lin Shi's side, and Xiao Tong was always carried by him as well. The rest of the mutated plants were planted in his courtyard. If Lin Shi went out, he would leave the cloud leopard or the long-armed ape to stand guard. Of course, the cloud leopard was a bit better. If it was the long-armed ape, every time Lin Shi came home, he'd find a few suspicious puddles of water around the mutated plants. The long-armed ape was drinking water. "You're back." Lin Rongshuan was watering Lin Shi's mutated plants in the yard. Seeing Lin Shi return, he called out, "You're back, Dad. What do you want for lunch?" "Your second uncle, and I will make it for you. Anything is fine. Add a cold pig head meat salad. Haven't had that in a while." "All right, I'll go tell your second uncle." Lin Rongshuan put down the watering can and hurried into the house. Lin Shi swept his mental power over the area and saw Lin Mingjin cooking, Lao He helping out, and Lin Siyuan sparring with Qin Shuang in the yard, with many Lin family members watching and cheering. Currently, Lin Siyuan was only a tiny bit of mental power away from breaking through to the 7th tier. Lin Shi would only feel safe performing the surgery once Lin Siyuan reached tier 7. Because of this, Lin Siyuan had been working very hard lately. Qi Chuyue and Qi Yun were at the base, working with top neurosurgeons borrowed from the Xia Nation government to make preparations. This was all for Lin Shi's surgery in a little over 3 months. Seeing everyone working so hard for him, Lin Shi smiled contentedly. Once he dealt with that origin pillar, life would surely become much more peaceful. Compared to before, when he had to struggle alone against deadly dangers just to survive, this life was so much better. 2 months later, within the borders of Xia Nation. At this moment, on every street and in every building across Xia Nation, there was hardly a single citizen in sight. Even the soldiers who were gathering the last of the supplies in the cities had retreated to the government bases. But on the streets, black and white people from other countries began to appear. These people had initially sneaked into Xia Nation to scout the situation. Just a few days ago, Xia Nation's borders were still heavily guarded. It wasn't until the last few days that neighboring countries realized Xia Nation had even withdrawn its border defense forces. This was a massive deal. Consequently, wave after wave of foreign agents flooded into Xia Nation, only to find desolate, empty cities. What the hell is this? Are all the people of Xia Nation dead? Shocked exclamations echoed through the empty cities. An agent from the Lighthouse Nation bumped into an agent from the Sakura Nation. After exchanging information, they realized both were on similar missions. These abnormal changes are extremely concerning. We need to stay on high alert and report back to the president immediately. This is happening in multiple cities. At first, everyone thought Xia Nation was making a mountain out of a molehill, worrying over nothing. But now, the entire population of Xia Nation had completely withdrawn, and even the borders were left unguarded. This was way too serious. Either the leaders of Xia Nation had gone mad, or the world was about to go mad. If not, how could Xia Nation dare to withdraw its troops from the border? To the leaders of Xia Nation, when the apocalypse arrived, almost all the world's territories would become ownerless. What was the point of defending them to the death now? As long as Xia Nation had enough survivors, they would claim even more territory in the future. Then, they would expand Xia Nation's map once again. All the spies who infiltrated Xia Nation easily gathered intel on its current situation. This time, even the Lighthouse Nation, the country most skeptical of Xia Nation's doomsday claims, was anxiously making preparations. It was just that time was running out. Because of their arrogant attitude, and to avoid a war for survival, Xia Guohuang didn't reveal any more details about the harsh apocalypse. Some spies under orders still wanted to investigate the area around the current government base. But the government base was now heavily fortified like a fortress. Calling it an inescapable net wouldn't be an exaggeration. These spies never returned once they got close to the base. The Lighthouse Nation, in particular, lost several elite agents. Because of this, coupled with Xia Nation currently cutting off communications, the president of the Lighthouse Nation, Donald Gavin, came up with a crazy idea. He ordered the Lighthouse Nation's aircraft carriers into Xia Nation's waters and teamed up with a few lapdog nations, preparing to invade Xia Nation's territory and directly seize the doomsday bases and massive supplies Xia Nation had built up. If the apocalypse was real, they would get the best doomsday bases and Xia Nation's massive supplies. If it was fake, they could still carve out a new national map. As soon as the Lighthouse Nation and a few other countries made their move, the Xia Nation government received the news. Although there were no soldiers guarding the borders now, some equipment was still operational. Satellites could monitor any major movements from other countries. The Lighthouse Nation's massive operation was quickly detected by Xia Nation. In the meeting room of the government base, Xia Chun, Lin Tianrui, and Wang Chao were all present. Several high-ranking leaders like Lin Honglong and Xia Guowang were also there. Given the current situation, do you have any proposals or solutions? Everyone began to discuss. There were only 21 days left until the solar storm. During this time, we just need to deploy armed forces to stall for time. By then, they won't have any other options. Should we use small tactical nukes to wipe them out? After all, once the solar storm hits, we won't need those things for a while anyway. Find someone to negotiate with Donald Gavin. Use stalling tactics. My armory still has plenty of spare missiles. Why not just use them to wipe them all out? Everyone offered various opinions. In theory, these solutions were viable, but they had to be based on the actual situation. If the enemy's momentum was strong, stalling tactics wouldn't work. If they engaged in direct combat, casualties would definitely be high. However, this scenario had already been discussed when they withdrew troops from the border. How should they handle it if other countries had malicious intentions? Because of this, many long-range missiles had already been positioned at key locations to respond. First, determine their point of attack on our country. Prepare for high-level combat. We'll use missiles to intercept and warn them. Finally, everyone made a decision. The Sakura Nation was the closest to Xia Nation and was the Lighthouse Nation's lapdog. The Sakura Nation was the first to enter Xia Nation's territory. But the moment their aircraft carriers docked, countless missiles rained down from the sky. The missile barrage was as dense as rain. The Sakura Nation immediately fell into chaos. Just minutes after docking, they had to retreat to their starting point. Meanwhile, the Lighthouse Nation received an official notice from Xia Nation. If they dared to take one more step into Xia Nation's territory, Xia Nation wouldn't just fire missiles. Xia Nation's military strength was no weaker than the Lighthouse Nation's. The Lighthouse Nation was scared stiff and didn't dare to act rashly anymore. But a small number of foreign soldiers had already slipped into Xia Nation's territory. Over the next 21 days, Xia Nation was constantly probed and harassed by multiple countries. On the outside, Xia Nation's response was fierce, but in reality, they were just going through the motions behind the scenes. They didn't deploy any troops. At most, they fired long-range artillery and missiles. By the time the president of the Lighthouse Nation realized Xia Nation was just putting on a show of force, it was already June 1st. This was also the day Xia Guowang said the apocalypse would begin. Early that morning, the world was as normal as any other day. The president of the Lighthouse Nation, Donald Gavin, had stayed up all night. Early in the morning, he kept asking about the situation at the solar space station. The answer was that there were no abnormal phenomena whatsoever. He immediately sneered in his office. Idiots. I told you. How could the apocalypse suddenly happen? Today is already June 1st. Those Xia Nation fools were definitely scammed by someone. By now, Xia Nation's ammunition must be running low. Launch a full-scale attack on Xia Nation this noon. I will plant our flag on Xia Nation's soil. But Donald Gavin didn't know that this solar storm couldn't be detected by Earth's technology. Perhaps, fundamentally, it wasn't a solar storm at all. It wouldn't be until June 4th at exactly 12 p.m. Xia Nation time that the terrifying electromagnetic explosion would occur. And that was when the apocalypse would truly begin. Hearing Donald Gavin's orders, his subordinates immediately got to work. Soon after, the Sakura Nation and the Lan Nation also received their orders. The three countries simultaneously launched large-scale military operations targeting Xia Nation. On June 2nd, the Sakura Nation spearheaded the advance into Xia Nation's territory. This time, tanks, armored vehicles, and fighter jets attacked simultaneously. Xia Nation detected the enemy and immediately fired missiles, but this time the Sakura Nation didn't retreat. Because according to the Lighthouse Nation's predictions, Xia Nation's ammunition reserves were nearly depleted. Right now, Xia Nation was just bluffing. On June 3rd, aircraft carriers from the Lighthouse Nation and the Lan Nation also anchored near the coast of Xia Nation's Gulf. A day earlier, the Sakura Nation had almost been scared off by the missile rain, but seeing the main force arrive, they were fired up again. The armies of the three nations advanced together, heading straight for the Xia Nation government base. The government base still didn't deploy troops to intercept them, only using long-range munitions. Because of this, they had even deliberately sought out Linshur a few days prior to use the new cell duplication technology. But missiles alone couldn't stop the advance of the three nations. And so, by June 4th, a portion of the troops and armored tanks from the Lighthouse Nation and the Lan Nation had entered the narrow perimeter of the government base. Donald Gavin completely didn't expect the campaign to go so smoothly. His army occupied most of the provinces, except for a few government headquarters. Despite losing over 100 fighter jets, the ground operations met almost no resistance. Afterward, Donald Gavin even ordered his soldiers to abandon the jets entirely and directly deploy troops to occupy every city. By now, these people had completely stopped believing in the apocalypse. Initially, there was only a vanguard group, but upon seeing the current situation, all three countries reinforced their troops, scrambling for territory. Especially the Sakura Nation, the geographically closest country, which had deployed almost its entire military. Previously, the Lighthouse Nation had declared finders keepers. Those countries that possessed the small bases Xia Nation had deceptively built, hoarding national supplies, angrily cursed Xia Nation countless times. Neighboring countries knew that the Lighthouse Nation, Sakura Nation, and Lan Nation had entered Xia Nation's territory and linked up. Even those countries that had always been wary of Xia Nation sent troops to its borders. But at this moment, they had no idea they would pay a heavy price for their actions. Especially the Lighthouse Nation. In the previous apocalypse, many of their domestic military forces had gathered plenty of supplies in the early stages and established solid bases. But now, the Lighthouse Nation's military was overseas. Donald Gavin and the people from the other two countries would soon discover that their aircraft carriers, fighter jets, tanks, and armored vehicles, everything that once fueled their pride, would turn into scrap metal, and his soldiers would never return. No matter what happened in the outside world, inside the base, it was as steady as a tripod. The people underground didn't know the situation outside. They just anxiously waited for the apocalypse to arrive. Because they had received a notice. On June 4th, at exactly 12 p.m. today, there would be an electromagnetic storm. At that time, most people would be affected by the strong magnetic field and fall into a coma. What they needed to do was lie quietly in their beds and wait for that moment to come. As for the officials in the base, they were all in special pods in a custom-designed room. After they fell into a coma, Gigi would be responsible for protecting their safety. That's right, Gigi was still being carried around by Xiaoguo. After today ended, Gigi would have completed its mission and returned to Linshur. 12 p.m. The solar storm swept across the globe, striking right on time. Soldiers from various countries around the world were horrified to discover that their tanks, fighter jets, and aircraft carriers all shut down at this exact moment. Some even burst into fierce flames. They also lost contact with their superiors. This panic didn't last long. When the geomagnetic storm suddenly erupted, except for a very few people who were completely unaffected by the magnetic field, almost everyone fell into a coma. In the Lin family base, only Lin Shur remained awake. Everyone else, without exception, had passed out. Lin Shur originally thought Tier 6 evolvers would be an exception, but Qin Shuang and the others still fell into a coma. As for Lin Shur, the moment everyone passed out, he also felt a bit dizzy. Fortunately, his powerful mental power kept him from losing consciousness. Lin Shur shook his head to regain his clarity and fully utilized his mental power. This time, he could stay awake and observe this geomagnetic storm that plunged almost all of humanity into a coma to see what changes were happening outside. Everywhere, after most people fell into a coma, the magnetic field was still erupting. Invisible energy, making no sound, collided in the air. As if prepared in advance, the personnel in Xia Nation cities had been fully evacuated. The cities had also cut the power, halting all production and transportation. On the surface, they seemed completely unaffected by this terrifying magnetic field. Only the weapons, equipment, and transport vehicles of the Lighthouse Nation and Sakura Nation met with disaster. Lin Shi swept his mental power over those people, observing the situation in the air and underground. As time passed, the invisible magnetic field gradually disappeared. From deep underground, an energy familiar to Lin Shi seeped upward from the inside out. This energy was origin matter. The origin matter underground grew denser, eventually rising slowly to the surface and appearing in the air. Then, they floated in the atmosphere. These origin matters were like curious little toys, hovering in the air. They could also seep into buildings or bump into people, animals, and plants, trying to see if they could enter. Origin matter could easily enter the bodies of animals or the roots of plants. But for humans, out of tens of thousands of tiny origin matter particles, only one could enter the body through natural openings like the nostrils. Lin Shi opened his eyes. His mental power still wasn't strong enough to pierce through the layers of Earth all the way to the planet's core. However, it was certain that the appearance of origin matter was connected to Earth itself. The origin matter emerged from deep underground, perhaps from the center of the Earth. Maybe this powerful geomagnetic storm had triggered Earth's accumulated or hidden origin matter, bringing it to the surface to enrich the creatures above. But humans, as an alien species, didn't seem to be welcomed by this origin matter, making it very difficult to absorb normally. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone was still unconscious, Lin Shi had some free time and headed over to the government base. All the machinery and electronic equipment in the government base had been stored deep underground and wrapped in a specially made metal layer for insulation, preventing them from being destroyed by the electromagnetic storm. Because of this, they weren't heavily damaged. Lin Shi came here to return the special machinery and tools he had previously stored in his spatial storage back to the government warehouse. When everyone woke up, he planned to take Chi Chioheng to the island where the origin pillar was located. Once he dealt with the origin pillar and the treasure bowl, the government base's defense system was practically non-existent in Lin Shi's eyes. He easily entered the base and went straight to the central area. At this moment, Lin Shi suddenly froze. Because right now, in the government base, there was someone else who hadn't fallen into a coma. This person was Lin Tianrui. Wait, no? Appearing outside the cryogenic storage where Lin Tianrui, Xia Guohuang, and the others were unconscious, someone was playing with Gigi. Yeah, they're asleep. Are you hungry? Here, let me feed you. The young man pulled a piece of roasted meat from his pocket. The meat was richly seasoned and smelled delicious. Gigi looked over, its little eyes lighting up. It was clearly hungry. It had been over half a day since everyone fell into a coma, and the food Xia Guohuang left for it had already been eaten clean. Moreover, this wasn't the first time this young man and Gigi had met, so Gigi had no guard up and took a bite of the roasted meat. The young man smirked, a sinister smile on his face. Seeing Gigi finish one piece, he offered another. He clearly knew Gigi loved roasted meat. But how was he so sure he wouldn't fall into a coma? Lin Shi was a few rooms away, secretly observing with his mental power. The man's footsteps kept getting closer to the warehouse. In an instant, Lin Shi suddenly realized. This young man very likely remembered the beginning of the previous apocalypse and knew he wouldn't fall into a coma during this magnetic storm. He remembered now. That young man seemed to be Xia Chun's cousin, who had participated in the commander training program. His name was Xiao Wang. Lin Shi only remembered this guy because he gave off a bad vibe, so he eliminated him in the very first round of selection. Gigi finished the roasted meat and suddenly let out a huge yawn. Xiao Wang smiled and said, "They're all asleep. You should sleep too." Squeak. Gigi nodded gratefully at Xiao Wang, ran to a corner, and fell fast asleep moments later. At this point, the greed and madness on Xiao Wang's face were no longer hidden. His voice was very soft, as if talking to himself, or afraid of waking Gigi, whispering, "Excellent. From now on, within 10 hours, this entire base will belong to me." He walked over to Xia Chun's hibernation pod. Glancing at the hibernating Xia Chun, disdain and malice were evident on his face. "You only got your position through your connections with the chief. You idiot. Did you really think you were better than me? Since we were kids, you always had more than me. Even for a job opportunity, my parents had to beg you for a recommendation. What gives you the right to act so superior?" What gives you the right to be so indifferent to the life and death of others? Xia Chun, just lie there and never wake up again. This time, I am the main character of the apocalypse. Saying that, he opened a hidden backup panel on Xia Chun's hibernation pod and used pliers to cut the wires connecting to it. As Xia Chun's cousin, Xiao Wang had always been one of the key electrical engineers at the base. Relying on his relationship with Xia Chun, plus his humble demeanor, Xiao Wang was always seen as a kind and helpful person. No one knew that Xiao Wang actually held memories of the previous apocalypse in his head. Last time, on the day the apocalypse struck, he didn't fall into a coma. But at that time, he was panicked and desperate, only able to seek out Xia Chun, the person he had relied on since childhood. When Xia Chun woke up, he didn't care about Xiao Wang, and instead went to check on Xia Guohuang's situation first. At that time, due to the apocalypse, the entire capital was in chaos. Many people took the opportunity to try and kill Xia Guohuang to take his place. Initially, Xiao Wang and Xia Chun took Xia Guohuang to the safest place, and soldiers informed them that Lin Honglong had brought an icebreaker to take them south. Xiao Wang thought he could escape with Xia Guohuang and Xia Chun. Who would have expected the group to be ambushed by enemies along the way? To protect Xia Guohuang, Xia Chun had most of the soldiers cover Xia Guohuang's escape, while he stayed behind with a small number of troops. Xiao Wang naturally couldn't stay and die with Xia Chun, so he insisted on going with Xia Guohuang. But they ran into trouble on the way, and the soldiers protecting Xia Guohuang completely ignored him, leaving him to die at the hands of the enemy. Xiao Wang, possessing memories of his past life, hated Xia Chun. If Xia Chun hadn't insisted on staying behind to lure the enemy, how could he have been abandoned and treated like nothing? Xiao Wang's eyes were resolute. If you're going to die, fine. Why drag me down with you? Xia Chun, don't worry. I'll make sure all these people die with you. You won't be lonely on your way to the underworld. 2 years ago, Xiao Wang had started planning. He knew the weaknesses of the hibernation pods early on. In fact, even the proposal to build the hibernation pods was brought up by him. He proposed this during the base's construction. The reasoning was that if all the base leaders fell into a coma, any accident during that time would severely impact Xia Nation's future, so using hibernation pods would be safer. If the base lost power due to the solar storm, it had backup generators. Even if the backup generators failed, the hibernation pods still had backup batteries. Additionally, this room could partially block the effects of the geomagnetic storm. Therefore, it was quite safe. Most people agreed with this proposal, so the hibernation pods were used. But now, someone had cut the power in the base and even cut the backup batteries for the hibernation pods. When the power went out, the hibernation pods plunged into darkness, and the oxygen supply systems stopped working. The hibernation pods, originally designed to protect the people inside, would run out of oxygen in just a few hours, and the people inside would die in their sleep from hypoxia. After cutting the power to Xia Chun's hibernation pod, Xiao Wang cut the power to the others' hibernation pods one by one, then restored the pods' exteriors to their original state. The entire process was extremely careful, making no unnecessary noise. Because he knew the sedative he gave Gigi was only enough to make it sleep. Any threat or noise from the outside could wake it up. He heard this giant rat was the pet of the patriarch of some hidden family and was incredibly powerful. So he had long used his relationship with Xia Chun to get close to Xia Guohuang and familiarize himself with Gigi. All for this day. After finishing everything, Xiao Wang left the room and locked the door tightly. Next, I'll choose a way for those commoners to die. The apocalypse is coming. What's the point of keeping so many people around? Better let them all die. That way, the supplies will be enough for me and my descendants to survive in this underground base for thousands of years. Xiao Wang planned to pick a few girls he liked as his breeding tools. He wouldn't kill the soldiers yet, because he still needed them for protection. He had connections with Xia Chun. When the time came, he would tell the outside that the hibernation pods malfunctioned due to the geomagnetic storm. Then he would regretfully announce to everyone that he was taking over this shelter. As for the others, he just needed to shut off the underground base's air circulation system. Let them die just like Xia Chun. Just as he finished locking the door, lost in his beautiful vision of the future, he turned around and suddenly saw a young man a few years younger than him standing behind him. Xiao Wang jumped in shock and yelled, "Where did you come from?" Xiao Wang tried to stay calm, looking at Lin Shi in front of him with astonishment. Xiao Wang had never met Lin Shi. His status wasn't high enough to meet him, but Lin Shi had seen Xiao Wang twice from a distance. "What are you doing here?" "I just came to check the situation, to make sure the leader and commanders aren't in any danger." Xiao Wang's eyes darted around, murderous intent already brewing in his heart. Even if this guy was lucky enough not to be knocked out by the geomagnetic storm like him, he had seen him coming out of the hibernation room. To avoid being exposed, he absolutely had to kill him to silence him. "So, are they in any danger?" Lin Shi asked intentionally, even though he knew the answer. He had just gone down to the base's storage, put the government's items back in place, and returned. "No, they're perfectly fine." Xiao Wang sneered, reaching behind his back and quietly pulling out a handgun. He pointed the gun at Lin Shi, his eyes blazing, and roared, "Go to hell." Bang! A gunshot rang out. Xiao Wang almost couldn't hold onto the gun, because the bullet fired at Lin Shi's head stopped rigidly right in front of him, as if blocked by an invisible barrier, unable to advance an inch. Xiao Wang's eyes widened in disbelief. He fired a second shot, then a third, until the handgun was empty. But Lin Shi remained calm, looking at him with eyes that seemed to be looking at a corpse. The bullets he fired didn't harm Lin Shi at all. "You?" Xiao Wang backed away in terror, stammering. The gun fell to the floor. But behind him was the door he had just locked tight. There was no way out. "If it were before, you'd already be dead." Lin Shi slightly shifted his thoughts, and the bullets hovering in front of him instantly changed direction, shooting into Xiao Wang's legs. Xiao Wang screamed in agony, clutching his legs as he fell to the floor. Seeing Lin Shi taking step after step toward him, Xiao Wang desperately tried to crawl to the side. "Spare me. Spare me. Please don't kill me." Lin Shi didn't even look at him. He walked to the locked door and placed his hand on it. A second later, under Xiao Wang's horrified gaze, Lin Shi forcefully pushed open the tightly locked metal door and walked in without hesitation. Lin Shi glanced around the room. He easily opened the hibernation pods that normal evolvers couldn't open. Gigi smelled Lin Shi's scent, crawled out from a hidden corner, and stumbled toward him. A creature that looked both adorable and sleek. Xiao Wang had injected Gigi with enough tranquilizer to paralyze 2 elephants, but to Gigi, it only made it feel a bit tired. Lin Shi picked Gigi up. "How can you live in human society for so long and still be this stupid?" Gigi rubbed its eyes, twitched a few times in Lin Shi's hands, and fell fast asleep. The injured Xiao Wang outside the door saw the scene inside. At first, he only suspected Lin Shi's identity, but now, he couldn't believe this person had appeared here. Impossible. It can't be him. He knew the biggest reason this government base was built in Jiansheng was because of one person. That person was the mysterious patriarch of a powerful family, Lin Shi. He heard that even the government had to consult this person when choosing leaders. And he himself had been eliminated by Lin Shi in the very first round. Xiao Wang couldn't understand why Lin Shi, a person who clearly didn't appear in his previous life, had appeared in this one. And why did everyone believe what Lin Shi said? Xiao Wang had recovered his memories quite early. Before Lin Shi contacted the government, Xiao Wang had already recovered them. He didn't tell anyone, but stayed hidden, because he felt that even if he spoke up, no one would believe him. Moreover, he wanted to use his knowledge of the future to secretly hoard food in the south on one hand, and hide beside Xia Chun on the other, waiting for a chance to eliminate Xia Chun and use his advantage to become the top leader. At first, everything was going well, but then one day, the situation suddenly changed. All the high-ranking officials suddenly believed the apocalypse was coming. Those who didn't believe and opposed the Xia country emperor vanished from the face of the earth. Everyone started preparing for the apocalypse. This made Xiao Wang's preparations seem both ridiculous and pathetic. Xiao Wang originally thought that, with his memories, he would definitely surpass everyone. But now, everyone was starting from the exact same point as him. Moreover, the state's power was much faster and more efficient than his. All because of the patriarch of some hidden family named Lin Shi. Everyone believed Lin Shi's words. Lin Shi's appearance completely ruined all of Xiao Wang's plans. Later, Xiao Wang heard Xia Chun say that the Xia country emperor was preparing to establish a commander training camp to train leaders for the bases after the apocalypse arrived. Xiao Wang was even selected for the list due to his excellent performance. Xiao Wang was overjoyed, thinking he had another chance. But unexpectedly, he had never even met Lin Shi. Yet Lin Shi eliminated him simply because he didn't find him pleasing to the eye. If Xia Chun was the person Xiao Wang hated the most, then Lin Shi was simply a thorn in his heart, the person he despised above all else. A hatred from the bottom of his heart. Xiao Wang originally thought he held many advantages, but Lin Shi's appearance was like a nightmare, making everything he had pale in comparison. Now, after so much hardship, hiding, and waiting for an opportunity, he wanted to rely on his special physique, being insensitive to magnetic fields, to rise up. But who would have thought that, in the end, Lin Shi would still appear and shatter his meticulously crafted plans? Why? Since you let me be reborn, why let others be reborn too? This isn't fair. It's not fair. Xiao Wang didn't know that it was precisely because of Lin Shi's existence that he retained his previous memories. Otherwise, he would have died right at the beginning of the previous apocalypse. It's just that this time, he wouldn't live long either. Moreover, the last time the Xia country emperor knew the apocalypse was coming and prepared in the south, it was also thanks to Lin Shi's secret reminders. It's just that those preparations compared to this time were too meager and meaningless. Lin Shi intended to take Jiji and leave immediately, but thinking of the current state of the Xia country emperor, Lin Tianrui, and the others, if something happened after he left, they would be easily ambushed. Therefore, Lin Shi went up to Xia Chun and slapped him twice, trying to see if he could wake him up. Who told Xia Chun to be the most important person in the entire base right now? Lin Shi could only look for him. Unexpectedly, Xia Chun actually woke up from his coma. You? Patriarch Lin. Xia Chun was still a bit groggy, looking at Lin Shi with a bewildered expression. Hasn't the magnetic storm arrived? Shouldn't I be in the cold storage? Why does my face hurt a bit? Lin Shi put Xia Chun down. Xia Chun suddenly saw that the entire cold storage had been broken open. He hurriedly checked the condition of the others. Seeing that everyone was just unconscious and their breathing was normal, Xia Chun breathed a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Lin Shi in confusion, not knowing why Lin Shi had destroyed the cold storage. But Xia Chun was a very smart person. He knew Lin Shi wouldn't harm them. If Lin Shi wanted to harm them, they wouldn't even know how they died. Since the cold storage was destroyed by Lin Shi, it proved there was a problem with it. It would have been fine if Xia Chun hadn't checked, but once he did, he was startled. He discovered that the backup power source in the base had been cut off. Not only that, but the power to the cold storage had also been cut. Following the destroyed door, Xia Chun saw Xiao Wang struggling to crawl outside with his hands, leaving a long trail of blood. In an instant, Xia Chun understood everything. His eyes were filled with extreme disappointment. Why did you do this? Xiao Wang saw Xia Chun wake up and panicked. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was all him. I was trying to stop him. Xia Chun turned to thank Lin Shi. Thank you, Patriarch Lin. Lin Shi waved his hand. It's a small matter. I left your things in the warehouse. Don't look for me anymore. Deal with this person yourself. I'm leaving. With that, Lin Shi turned and left. Since Xia Chun was awake, he didn't need to intervene in other matters. Xia Chun might look gentle on the outside, but he was actually very ruthless. Even more so than Lin Tianrui. He definitely wouldn't show mercy. Although Lin Tianrui looked fierce, he was sometimes soft-hearted. That was why Lin Shi initially agreed to let Xia Chun be the base leader. Lin Shi didn't know if that decision was right or wrong, but Lin Tianrui didn't want to be the leader anyway, so it was only natural to let someone else do it. Besides, this matter had little to do with him. This time, he had provided information to the government base and cleared many obstacles. From now on, he would no longer act as a nanny for the government base. Leaving the government base, he returned to the Lin family. No one had woken up yet. Lin Shi didn't force them to wake up, but gathered Lin Rongshuan, Lin Siyuan, and Qi Yun. Except for Qi Qiaoyue and the Demon King, he put everyone into his space. Then he took Qi Qiaoheng and flew straight to the island containing the primordial pillar. With Qi Qiaoyue guarding the Lin family, Lin Shi felt very at ease. He also left Jiji at the Lin family base. Right now, in his space, besides Lin Rongshuan, that group of people, and the Demon King, there was only one primordial pillar. He always felt that transferring the treasure bowl this time wouldn't be easy. A few hours later, Lin Shi arrived at the island. The magnetic storm had dissipated, and the sun was gradually setting. The air was much cooler than yesterday, but most people were still unaware because they were still unconscious. Lin Shi went straight to the center of the island. The central area had now been built into a fortified villa complex, with many Lin family members guarding another primordial pillar. Lin Shi arrived without anyone noticing. He let Lin Rongshuan, the others, and the Demon King out, then woke them up one by one. Qi Xiaoheng was the last. Seeing themselves in a strange place, the others were quite calm, because they knew Lin Shi's plan. They were just a bit surprised that Lin Shi had brought them to the island so quickly. Only Qi Xiaoheng guessed something. He looked excited. He hadn't seen the sun in 2 years. "Don't rush," Lin Shi said. Lin Shi asked the Demon King and the others to help take out the other primordial pillar. Then he looked at Qi Xiaoheng and clearly explained his plan. "When I transfer the treasure bowl to you, you take the thing down there out, along with the one we took out, and put them into the space. If you can do it, I promise I won't kill you." Transferring the treasure bowl to someone else required emptying the space inside it. Therefore, after taking out another primordial pillar, Lin Shi would empty the space inside that pillar. Then, he would transfer the treasure bowl to Qi Xiaoheng. The reason for not killing Qi Xiaoheng was very simple. Lin Shi had asked the old Taoist priest, when the host dies, the treasure bowl and the ancient coin will separate from the host's body. Similarly, the items originally stored in the treasure bowl's space would also spill out. Therefore, if he gave Qi Xiaoheng the treasure bowl, he couldn't kill him. Otherwise, all his efforts would be in vain. But he wouldn't let Qi Xiaoheng go either, because the master of the treasure bowl only needed a single thought to take anything inside out. What Lin Shi wanted to do was not leave a potential threat for himself, but to completely eliminate all those dangers. "Are you really not going to kill me?" Qi Xiaoheng looked skeptical, but right now he had no better choice. To possess a divine artifact like the treasure bowl in this lifetime, even if he died, he would feel it was worth it. Ever since he knew the treasure bowl was inside Lin Shi, Qi Xiaoheng understood that Lin Shi's strength was entirely due to the treasure bowl's credit. Regardless of Lin Shi's purpose, with such a good opportunity, Qi Xiaoheng would absolutely not pass it up. "If I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't need to trick you," Lin Shi said without blinking an eye. Where Qi Xiaoheng couldn't see, the Demon King rolled its eyes. Qi Xiaoheng lowered his head as if in thought. A moment later, he looked up and said, "I believe you. If you don't kill me, I will let go of our past grudges and wholeheartedly serve the family." Back then, I was indeed wrong. A hint of regret flashed in Qi Xiaoheng's cloudy eyes. Lin Shi smirked slightly. "That's good then." Although he didn't see any malice in Qi Xiaoheng's eyes, Lin Shi clearly felt the killing intent radiating from him. It was a feeling that only powerhouses with strong mental energy like Lin Shi could sense. But Lin Shi wouldn't expose Qi Xiaoheng right now. The excavation continued. Just a few hours later, another primordial pillar appeared. It was still in an unawakened state. Lin Shi told the others to step back. Only Lin Rongshuan, Lin Mingjin, Lin Siyuan, Qin Shuang, and the Demon King remained. Then, with a thought from Lin Shi, another primordial pillar appeared from his space onto the ground. "This is what you want. After I transfer the treasure bowl to you, you must immediately store this pillar into the space. Otherwise, I will kill you and take the treasure bowl back." Lin Shi pointed at the two primordial pillars and said to Qi Xiaoheng. The pressure of an 8th-tier evolver weighed heavily on Qi Xiaoheng. "Killing you is just a thought for me." Under that terrifying power, Qi Xiaoheng knelt on the ground, looking at Lin Shi in fear. He hurriedly showed that he understood. Lin Shi didn't hesitate. Everyone on the island was about to wake up. When that happened, chaos was inevitable. According to the old Taoist priest, to transfer the treasure bowl, one must make physical contact with the other person. Then, focus their thoughts on the treasure bowl's interface and silently chant, "First-generation vessel, currently requesting a change of host. Please execute the command." This thought was like a string of passwords that could unlock another function of the treasure bowl. The interface would display a new notification. Then, as long as the other party agreed, the treasure bowl would be transferred to them. The old Taoist priest had done exactly that back then. Lin Shi grabbed Qi Xiaoheng's hand. "Remember what I said. Start now. You are not allowed to resist later. Just use your thoughts to agree." I'm going to begin. Qi Qiaoheng nodded hastily, feeling both nervous and excited. The others, including the Demon King, all looked at Lin Shi with expressions of either tension or worry. Qin Shuang was about to speak, but was pulled back by Lin Rongshuan, who shook his head to stop her. Qin Shuang's thoughts were very simple. Transferring the treasure bowl to someone else was quite dangerous. She wanted to be the intermediary, bearing the risk for Lin Shi. But Lin Shi intended to use the treasure bowl to solve the primordial pillar problem. The first time he collected a primordial pillar, the treasure bowl had undergone changes. Lin Shi remembered that clearly. He didn't want his loved ones to take risks. Lin Rongshuan and the others treated Qin Shuang like a daughter, so naturally, they wouldn't agree. Only Qi Qiaoheng. His life was cheap anyway. If the primordial pillar damaged the treasure bowl, then Qi Qiaoheng's death would be worth it. Even if Qi Qiaoheng didn't die, Lin Shi wouldn't spare him. Lin Shi had already calculated that after Qi Qiaoheng used the treasure bowl to deal with the primordial pillar, he would upgrade Qi Qiaoheng to Tier 6. Then, using the surgical knowledge he had learned over the past few years, he would destroy a part of Qi Qiaoheng's brain, not enough to kill him, but enough to turn him into a living vegetable. An immobile person without consciousness, who could only survive on nutrient fluids for hundreds or thousands of years, becoming the bearer of the treasure bowl. This way, the primordial pillar would absolutely not appear for hundreds or thousands of years, and they would have time to find a better solution while gathering more information about the primordial pillar. Lin Shi opened the treasure bowl's interface. He silently chanted, "First-generation vessel, currently requesting a change of host. Please execute the command." As soon as Lin Shi's thought ended, the treasure bowl interface before his eyes suddenly turned into error codes and began to restructure. Lin Shi watched intently, and very quickly, the treasure bowl interface displayed a new notification. Command received. Confirm change of host? Yes or no? Yes. Please ensure the space is empty. Please ensure the other party agrees. Please maintain physical contact with the new host. Scanning new host. Qi Qiaoheng felt a mysterious, indescribable sensation transmitting from the arm Lin Shi was holding. His eyes welled up with tears of emotion, which were quickly replaced by gratitude. But he would definitely hide his true strength. He would wait until Lin Shi, Lin Rongshuan, and the others let their guard down, secretly grow stronger, and then take his revenge. Lin Shi was fully prepared for the transfer of the treasure bowl to Qi Qiaoheng. Scanning. Process complete. In the Asen nation, the people knocked unconscious by the electromagnetic storm woke up one after another. Many still didn't know what had happened, only feeling scared because they had been unconscious for so long. But after finding their bodies were fine, they resumed their daily lives. It was just that, for some reason, many people felt cold because the outside temperature had started to drop sharply. But they hadn't realized it yet. Many thought they had been unconscious too long or got cold lying on the ground. Only a man and a woman, after waking up, had a change in their eyes. The two exchanged a glance, both their eyes showing joy, completely different from the people around them. The man glanced at the bracelet on his wrist and laughed maniacally. Haha, the evolutionary frenzy has finally reached Earth. Absorb all the origin matter here for me. As soon as he finished speaking, the rustic bracelet began to glow faintly. The surrounding origin matter continuously flowed into the bracelet, and from there, into the man's body. Ugh, the woman beside him interrupted with a look of disgust. Stop absorbing here. I can't stand this stench. From now on, I want to go on a killing spree. The man stopped absorbing and looked at his companion. All right, you violent woman. Whatever you want. Right now, in this world, besides Lin Shi, no one can threaten us. Let's kill. This time, I will directly become the Snow Moon King, and you will be my queen. I will start from here, step by step, becoming the supreme commander of humanity in this world. Who wants to be your queen? Scanning failed. New host does not meet the requirements. Change of host failed. Command rejected. Lin Shi's eyes were filled with shock. How could this be? If he remembered correctly, the old Taoist said back then that he just needed to find someone to complete the transfer of the treasure bowl. Moreover, when he forced the old Taoist to confess about the 3 people on the 3 continents, the old man never mentioned that the treasure bowl required specific criteria to change hosts. This point would be easily discovered, so there was no need to lie. If it wasn't that the treasure bowl actually had requirements for changing hosts, then he had been tricked by the old Taoist. But the old Taoist had told him so much, there was no reason not to scare him on this point. Ruling out that possibility, the remaining reason was that the treasure bowl's requirements for changing hosts had changed. But how could a pre-programmed system, or rather, a vessel, suddenly change? Lin Shi pulled his hand back from Qiqiang. Whatever the reason, since the treasure bowl didn't accept Qiqiang, he was completely worthless. Qiqiang was still waiting for the legendary treasure bowl to descend upon him. But he waited for a long time, and nothing happened. Noticing Lin Shi pull his hand back, Qiqiang was stunned. What's wrong? You're useless. Qiqiang stared wide-eyed. There was nothing more despairing than stripping away the last hope of a desperate person. Qiqiang clenched his fists. He was still wearing specially made shackles on his hands and feet. He said agitatedly, "Why? Didn't you say you'd give me the treasure bowl? Why are you breaking your promise?" Lin Rongshuan and the others also looked at Lin Shi in surprise. They didn't understand why Lin Shi suddenly didn't want to give Qiqiang the treasure bowl anymore. With a thought, Lin Shi stored the origin pillar of the origin beast tree into his spatial storage. This tree had been collected before, and this time the treasure bowl showed no abnormal phenomena either. There was one tree left, which Lin Shi didn't touch at all. He turned to Lin Rongshuan and said, "Clean this up. He's useless. Demon King, put that origin pillar back." "Yes," Lin Rongshuan replied. "You'll all die a horrible death. Your whole family." Qiqiang was unwilling to accept this. He knew he was definitely going to die today, so he wanted to curse Lin Shi one last time. But Lin Rongshuan punched him straight in the mouth. All of Qiqiang's teeth were knocked out, and he finally couldn't curse anymore. Qin Shuang looked at Lin Shi's back and quietly followed him. Did something happen? Lin Shi had long treated Qiqiang as a tool, so she didn't expect him to suddenly give up halfway. There was only one possibility. During the transfer of the treasure bowl, an unexpected accident occurred that they didn't know about. Lin Shi stopped walking inside. The treasure bowl didn't accept Qiqiang. The transfer of ownership failed. What? Qin Shuang was shocked. Did the treasure bowl always have this rule? Qin Shuang also started thinking. Could it be that the treasure bowl has changes that even the old Taoist didn't know about? Or, let me try, Qin Shuang suggested. Let me think about it, he replied. Lin Shi frowned. There was something he didn't want to tell Qin Shuang. He suspected the treasure bowl was developing its own consciousness. Lin Shi recalled all the information about the treasure bowl since he opened it. It seemed that in the beginning, the treasure bowl was much more lively than it was now. At that time, the treasure bowl seemed afraid of Lin Shi dying, always warning him before any danger. Later, for some unknown reason, those threats seemed to no longer affect Lin Shi. The countdown warnings also disappeared. The treasure bowl had restarted 3 times, corresponding to its 3 owners. Lin Shi was the third. Between restarts, the treasure bowl hadn't been opened by anyone. So why did the treasure bowl change? Could man-made objects actually develop consciousness? Lin Shi fell deep into thought. Qin Shuang didn't disturb him, quietly stepping back. She knew she should let Lin Shi have some peace. In the end, this operation was considered a failure. They didn't destroy the remaining origin pillar, nor did they subdue the treasure bowl. Lin Shi assigned the task of guarding the reburied origin pillar to other members of the family. Meanwhile, he, Lin Rongshuan, and the others returned the way they came. It was just that on the way back, they were missing an annoying guy, Qiqiang. Qiqiang had been thoroughly dealt with by Lin Rongshuan. He no longer existed in this world. Over 2 years of torturing Qiqiang had also helped Lin Rongshuan and Qiqiang release the resentment in their hearts. Initially, Qiqiang still had some use, but unfortunately, the treasure bowl rejected him. If Qiqiang knew Lin Shi thought of him this way, he might have felt lucky to die a clean death. When Lin Shi returned to the Lin family, everyone had woken up. Lin Tianrui and Wang Chao came to visit. They sincerely thanked Lin Shi. Lin Tianrui and Wang Chao didn't have memories of the previous apocalypse, but both of them were very fond of Lin Shi. It was a genuine fondness, without any ulterior motives or flattery. Lin Shi naturally knew the reason. Even though they didn't remember the previous apocalypse, they were still influenced subconsciously. Because both of them were very fond of Lin Shi in the previous apocalypse, they still had a very good impression of him this time. Lin Shi invited them for dinner before they reluctantly left. The next day, Lin Shi received news from his subordinates. The government had started purging the invading soldiers from the Lighthouse Nation, Sakura Nation, Lan Nation, and other countries. Under the government's intense pursuit, some panicked soldiers fled to the Lin family base. Patriarch, should we kill them or let the government handle them? How many people are there? Lin Shi asked casually while petting the Demon King. Over 100 people. At the entrance of the Lin family base, a group of Sakura Nation remnants was shouting outside the gate. Hurry up and let us in. We are friends with the people in power in your family. The guards ignored them. They all despised these Sakura Nation people. However, hearing the other party claim to be friends with the Patriarch, they still maintained a polite exterior. Wait a moment, we've reported to the Patriarch. Hurry up and let us in first. A Sakura Nation officer, dressed rather luxuriously, looked back anxiously. The Xia Nation army chasing us will be here soon. He urged the guards. I know Qi Qiuheng. Tell him to come out and receive us. It turned out that Qi Qiuheng had previously collaborated with high-ranking officials from the Sakura Nation. These people had obviously found out the location of the Lin family base before coming, and they came here seeking refuge. The guards' expressions instantly became complicated. At first, they thought these remnants knew their patriarch. It turned out they knew Qi Qiuheng. Everyone knew the Lin family no longer had Qi Qiuheng. Moreover, Qi Qiuheng had offended both the previous and current patriarchs, and he himself was no saint. Except for a few of Qi Qiuheng's bodyguards, almost everyone had forgotten this guy's name. This time, the guard's polite exterior vanished, replaced by disdain and disgust. Get lost. What Qi Qiuheng? We don't have anyone by that name here. The Sakura Nation remnants were furious, and many started cursing in foreign languages. The guards didn't hold back, drawing their weapons. Keep making a scene, and don't blame us for not holding back. Just then, the guard who went to report returned. Seeing the messenger, the Sakura Nation remnant officer hurriedly asked, What did Qiuheng say? Are you letting us in right now? The messenger panted. The patriarch said, Kill them all, without mercy. The Sakura Nation soldiers stared wide-eyed. Idiots. Fight them to the death. These remnants were about to fight the Lin family guards to the death. Right at that moment, a black shadow dashed out from the gate. In an instant, it killed all of the over 100 people. You don't even know where you are, and you dare to act recklessly. The captain of the guards sneered disdainfully. Leopard bro, go back. We'll handle the rest. The one who had just killed the Sakura Nation remnants was Xiao Yunbao, the cloud leopard. Because it was very agile, Lin Shi assigned it to guard the door. Normally, Xiao Yunbao didn't like being bullied by the guards, and it enjoyed this door-guarding job. The guards gathered the corpses of the Sakura Nation remnants, dragged them far away, and burned them. When the officials came looking, they only saw the Lin family people digging a hole. They thought the other party was burying trash. Looking closely, it turned out to be a pile of bones burned beyond human recognition. Everything happened very fast. Almost none of the soldiers who dared to set foot in Xia Nation survived. Even if any survived, they lost their means of transportation and couldn't return. The officials didn't bother searching for the remaining ones either. Because just 2 days after the magnetic storm ended, the temperature suddenly dropped to a level ordinary people couldn't endure. Blizzards raged fiercely. Those still out there would find it hard to survive. Fortunately, the government's underground base had a good heating system and enough winter clothes stored. This time, the survival rate would reach over 90%. After the storm cleared, the government popularized the method of absorbing origin matter to temper the body. Many people would unlock their gene locks in the future. Although Lin Shi had fewer people, his supplies were abundant, and his preparations were no less than the government's. Moreover, most people in the Lin family base had already unlocked the Tier 1 gene lock, and their evolution speed far exceeded the government's. Lin Shi tasked Qi Qiuyue with teaching the meditation method to all clan members so they could try it out. However, success depended on talent. Lin Shi couldn't guide everyone individually. Since the extreme cold weather began, Lin Shi had sent people to hunt low-level origin beasts so the clan members could be self-sufficient. Last time, the transfer of the treasure bowl to someone else failed. Afterward, Lin Shi found many border clan members to test it on, but all failed. Even Qin Shuang, Qi Yun, and other talented individuals tried, but it still didn't work. Qin Shuang and Qi Yun's talents were unquestionable. If even they didn't meet the conditions to transfer the treasure bowl, there was only one possibility. The treasure bowl didn't want to leave Lin Shi. Lin Shi became more certain that the treasure bowl had consciousness. He had also tried communicating with it, but received no response. Unable to transfer the treasure bowl, Lin Shi couldn't unlock the Tier 9 gene lock. This made Lin Shi both anxious and urgent. The base gradually settled down, and Xia Nation's situation was looking good. Other countries weren't so lucky. The Lighthouse Nation had sent too many soldiers to attack Xia Nation's bases before the apocalypse arrived, leading to a severe shortage of forces now. From the very beginning, the refugee camps were left unprotected. Donald Gavin's office was stormed by a mob shouting for freedom. Donald Gavin was killed while being protected. He probably never expected that, having survived for many years in the Freedom Base after the apocalypse in his previous life, he would die in this life because of a wrong decision. The Sakura Nation was even worse off. Because they collaborated with the Lighthouse Nation, they had deployed almost their entire military overseas, leading to their annihilation right at the early stages of the apocalypse. Xiong Country, bordering Xia Country. Because they followed Xia Country's advice and hoarded a lot of supplies, quite a few people survived this time. But due to their geographical location far to the north, which was already freezing, they encountered extreme cold weather, and the temperature dropped to terrifying levels. The president of Xiong Country decided to abandon the capital and repair all icebreakers to evacuate the citizens southward. Several other countries also benefited from Xia Country's advanced preparation of supplies. In short, the global human situation this time was much better than the previous apocalypse. There were many more survivors. However, they would soon realize that the real threat was the origin beasts, not the harsh conditions. A few months later, a person covered in frost, with dried blood at the corner of his mouth, staggered to the gate of the government headquarters. The guards were initially alert, but then someone saw the frozen evidence in the person's hand. No one knew how long this person had been carrying the evidence. "Don't attack. It's our scout." The person reached the headquarters gate, couldn't hold on any longer, and collapsed. He was caught by the guards and reported to the leader. Annam Country. Annam Country has 2 7th-tier revolvers. They are trying to invade our borders. The Qin family base was still located in South America. Just like last time, the Li family and Wang family also developed normally in their old territories. However, the 4 families frequently communicated with each other, as if preparing thoroughly. This time, all 4 families kept quite a few transportation vehicles. For example, each family managed to store an icebreaker and several snowmobiles. In the current weather, even fighter jets struggled to fly anywhere in the sky. Only land and sea routes were barely passable. When the apocalypse arrived, the other 3 families still publicly followed the Lin family's command. They frequently sent people to bring hunted origin beasts and origin crystals to the Lin family. Lin Shi never refused anyone, but lately, he felt quite bored and depressed. He had spent months testing everyone in the family, but still hadn't found anyone who could inherit the treasure bowl. At the same time, he couldn't communicate with the treasure bowl either. This made Lin Shi increasingly anxious. Qin Shuang brought food to Lin Shi. Seeing him frowning in thought, she sighed inwardly, but still put on a bright smile and said, "Why the frown? You look like a little old man." "It's nothing." Lin Shi shook his head, taking the lunchbox Qin Shuang handed him, opening it, and eating his lunch. Ever since becoming the patriarch of the Lin family, he had someone prepare 3 meals a day for him. Qin Shuang didn't feel at ease letting others prepare food for Lin Shi, so she made it herself and brought it to him. Nothing has happened so far, which proves the treasure bowl is safe before reaching Tier 9. And if it's replaced by a primordial pillar, as long as we guard it carefully, it won't pose a danger to humanity. Right now, your strength is at Tier 8. You're still the strongest person in the world. You don't need to shoulder so much pressure. Qin Shuang tried to comfort Lin Shi with a few words. Lin Shi smiled bitterly. If there were no other variables, his Tier 8 was indeed enough. But what if 3 people from the other 3 continents really brought other vessels and entered the blue planet? When that time came, he wouldn't be the only one with a cheat. Unable to advance himself, Lin Shi could only place his hopes of advancement on the Demon King. Even so, Lin Shi was unwilling to stop at Tier 8. He would definitely find a way. After lunch, Qin Shuang left. Lin Shi tried to contact the treasure bowl again. Still the same. The treasure bowl remained like a game window, with no reaction. Since the treasure bowl couldn't change owners, Lin Shi went to find the old Taoist priest again. The old Taoist priest repeatedly swore that he hadn't lied to Lin Shi, and further explained the treasure bowl situation in detail. For example, the information and interface the old Taoist priest received when he opened the treasure bowl were completely different from Lin Shi's. It turned out that the treasure bowl's interface wasn't always what Lin Shi saw. Lin Shi's treasure bowl interface was like a neatly arranged game UI, with a few simple icon boxes and Chinese characters. Clicking on a box would reveal the corresponding information and data. But when the old Taoist priest held the treasure bowl, what he saw were a few very vivid drawings. It wasn't a cursor interface, but more like an illusory stone wall appearing before his eyes. The text displayed on the old Taoist priest's treasure bowl at that time wasn't the Chinese characters Lin Shi saw either, but the writing of an ancient tribe. The treasure bowl would automatically adjust its text and information database depending on the owner and the era, creating an easy-to-understand interface for the user. This further solidified Lin Shi's belief that the treasure bowl had the ability to self-upgrade or even possessed its own consciousness. Lin Shi discussed this speculation with the old Taoist priest. The old Taoist priest was very surprised and admitted he had never thought of this aspect. If the treasure bowl truly had significant changes, perhaps it was due to its ability to self-upgrade and absorb information. These possibilities were things the old Taoist priest hadn't managed to ask the people from the tricontinent back then. Therefore, the old Taoist priest was helpless and advised Lin Shi to figure it out himself. But the treasure bowl still didn't respond. Lin Shi had lost his patience with the treasure bowl. Just then, Lin Shi's walkie-talkie rang. The Scientific Research Institute had improved the walkie-talkies, and now they could make calls within a certain range. Lin Shi answered, and Xia Chun's voice came from the other end. "Hello, Mr. Lin. Are you free?" Lin Shi replied, "Leader Xia. If you have something to say, just say it." Xia Chun had a good temper, but often beat around the bush when speaking. According to Xia Chun, speaking required maintaining etiquette and manners. Xia Chun chuckled lightly, then sighed. "If you have time, could you make a trip to the base? There's a very important matter I need to discuss with you." Lin Shi frowned. The government base usually handled its own affairs. Unless they encountered a problem they couldn't solve, they wouldn't seek him out. "What is it?" The other end was silent for a moment before saying, "Our people discovered a place called the Dynasty Base in Asen Country. According to the Scouts report, the leaders of the Dynasty Base are two 7th-tier evolvers. I remember a few years before the apocalypse, 6th-tier evolvers were already very rare." Xia Chun paused again. "So we want to discuss with you to see if there are any variables in this apocalypse that we don't know about." Xia Chun was very sharp. When he learned that there were 7th-tier evolvers other than Lin Shi, he immediately suspected that Lin Shi was hiding some information. Xia Chun didn't have information about the vessels and parallel worlds, so he couldn't think of that possibility. Only Lin Shi, upon hearing the name Dynasty Base, which had never appeared in the previous apocalypse, and hearing that 7th-tier evolvers had appeared so early, thought of the people from the tricontinent for the first time. He knew that what he feared had still happened. There were others. People from the tricontinent had invaded this world through other vessels. "I'll be right there." Lin Shi's voice was calm, but a sharp, cold glint flashed in his eyes. If they were indeed people from the tricontinent, he absolutely wouldn't spare them. Not long after, Lin Shi arrived at the government base. Captain Hu, Xia Chun's subordinate, was already waiting at the main gate. Seeing Lin Shi, he immediately and respectfully led Lin Shi into the base. Many people coming in and out of the headquarters witnessed this scene and wondered who Lin Shi was. "Isn't that Captain Hu Leader Xia's man? Who is the person who just went in?" Captain Hu had to personally welcome him. "He looks so young. I've never seen him before. Probably a rookie 2nd-tier evolver. With that attitude, he's definitely not just a 2nd-tier. Captain Hu is also a 2nd-tier. Why would he need to bow and scrape like that? Do you guys think that person could be a 3rd-tier big shot?" Information about Lin Shi was only known among the high-ranking leaders of the base. Ordinary people not only hadn't heard his name, but had never even seen him. The government base was now operating systematically. Many people had unlocked their genes, and first-tier evolvers even formed groups to hunt beasts. In this apocalypse, humanity didn't waste time from the very beginning, so their evolution speed was no less than that of the origin beasts. Currently, first-tier origin beasts were common everywhere, while second-tier ones were very rare. In the base, there were only a few hundred of them scattered about. One must know, the population in the base was now over 1 billion. Those who reached Tier 2 evolution were already extremely powerful compared to ordinary people. People like Xia Chun, who were third-tier evolvers, were simply unreachable existences in the eyes of ordinary people. They were definitely the high-ranking officials of the base. Like Lin Tianrui and Wang Chao, these people not only had outstanding talent, but were also favored with resources. Therefore, when someone said they had never seen Lin Shi as a third-tier evolver, someone immediately retorted, "No way. Our base currently only has 3 leaders who are third-tier evolvers. That guy is probably just a relative of some higher-up. Or maybe a brilliant engineer. The base is in dire need of engineers and scientific researchers right now. All right, stop guessing. Hurry up and go hunt beasts. It'll be dark soon." The people going to hunt beasts here were all able-bodied young men between 18 and 45. The crowd dispersed one after another, leaving only a few young people standing in place. If Lin Shi were here, he would find these people somewhat familiar. They were Zhao Xiao, Huang Miao, and Su Feifei. When the apocalypse arrived, these people were naturally brought into the base as well. Lin Shi had long forgotten their existence. During high school, Lin Shi barely interacted with Zhao Xiao and the others. He had left school a long time ago. Now, Zhao Xiao and those people had all grown up. Full of youthful vigor, they had successively unlocked their Tier 1 genes. Among them, Zhao Xiao, due to his outstanding talent, had unlocked his Tier 2 gene. Among the ordinary people of the base, he also had some say. Seeing Lin Shi again, Zhao Xiao and the others all had certain reactions, but even knowing Zhao Xiao was here, Lin Shi couldn't be bothered to care. Lin Shi was taken to the meeting room. Hearing that Lin Shi had arrived, Xia Chun immediately summoned all the high-ranking officials of the base into the meeting room to wait. When Lin Shi walked in, everyone stood up and nodded in greeting. Lin Shi also nodded slightly and sat down next to Xia Chun. The matter of the scout investigating the situation in Asin country, Vice Leader Wang Chao presented again in this meeting. Wang Chao stood up and delivered the compiled report. Currently, at the former capital of Asin country, a medium-sized base has been established. The base has a few million people, and outside there are several million refugees. The base has 2 leaders, 1 male and 1 female. It's said that both are 7th tier. Under their command, there are over a dozen evolvers, mostly Tier 1 and Tier 2. The specific levels are unknown. It's said that there are also over 1,000 origin beasts in the base, levels unknown. It seems that because Asin country lacks resources, after that base pacified a few neighboring countries, they are now preparing to enter our Xia country's territory. Wang Chao read out all the information gathered by the scouts. In reality, much of the information was inaccurate because most of it was gathered from the accounts of refugees. More than half of the scouts who entered the base to investigate had died. Lin Shi recalled that in the previous apocalypse, Asin country and several surrounding small countries had allied together, developing under a tribal model. Some of the tribe's methods were quite brutal. Hunting and imprisoning humans was the most common situation in that region. If it weren't for the appearance of high-tier evolvers who had just established a base, Lin Shi might have thought he had returned from the future to change Asin country's fate. But the appearance of 7th-tier evolvers was a different story. Lin Shi tapped the table and said, "In other words, the information about the 7th-tier evolvers is still inaccurate at present. Yes, we don't have high-tier evolvers. Even if we met them face-to-face, it would be hard to discern the other party's level. That's why we need Lin Shi's help. If Asin country really has such grand ambitions, then the Xia country government base and the Lin family base will definitely be their targets. Moreover, if the other party can really advance to Tier 7 in such a short time, then advancing to Tier 8 or Tier 9 in the future isn't impossible. This is also a threat to Lin Shi. Therefore, this matter isn't just about asking Lin Shi for help. Are the icebreakers still intact? Patriarch Lin, if possible, Could your side send people to go with our people to investigate the situation together? Xia Chun asked in a very polite tone. Lin Shi didn't hesitate at all. I'll go personally. Everyone in the meeting room stared wide-eyed and slack-jawed. This was like playing Fight the Landlord. The opponent played a pair of tens, and Lin Shi directly threw out a pair of twos. Xia Chun was also startled. You want to go personally? Lin Tianrui confirmed again. Lin Shi just didn't want to waste effort going back and forth. If the other party was really from the Tricontinent, he would just kill them directly and be done with it. Sending people back and forth wasted time. Not to mention, if the people sent weren't a match for the other party, they would lose both experience and their lives. In that case, I'll go with you. Lin Tianrui looked at Xia Chun. Xia Chun nodded. Since Lin Shi was going personally, and he himself couldn't go, Lin Tianrui going along was the best choice. Then it's decided. Patriarch Lin, you can go back and make arrangements first. We will also make arrangements here. Once you're done with your family's affairs, just come to the base. We will depart according to your schedule. Lin Shi stood up and left the meeting room. He wanted to go back and inform Qi Qiaoyue, Lin Rongshuan, and the others. Lin Shi politely declined the escort of Xia Chun and the others, heading to the government headquarters by himself. Unexpectedly, he ran into a few acquaintances here: Zhao Xiao, Huang Miao, Su Feifei, and Su Qin. These people hadn't separated later on because they went to different universities. On the contrary, thanks to the government's large-scale operations, they were all placed in the government base. From a distance, Lin Shi saw them standing near the side gate, looking like they were waiting for someone. Lin Shi didn't think they were waiting for him. After all, since high school, because Lin Mingjin didn't die and Lin Shi had dropped out, they hadn't seen much of each other. Lin Shi had no intention of going over to say hello and just walked straight ahead. Unexpectedly, Su Feifei saw Lin Shi coming and shouted to the others. He's here. Then she blocked Lin Shi's path. Lin Shi stopped and looked at the people in front of him. He said coldly, "What is it? You're Lin Shi, right? Don't you recognize us? We used to be classmates in the same class." Su Feifei sized Lin Shi up. She didn't show any emotion, but inwardly concluded that he was living very well now. But wait, it's the apocalypse. How could he still be dressed so neatly? They had just guessed that Lin Shi's current identity was either the junior of a high-ranking official in the base or someone with very strong power. But it had been months into the apocalypse, and Lin Shi was the same age as them. They wouldn't believe it no matter how strong he was said to be. So, there was only one explanation. Lin Shi had an identity that was either rich or noble. They all felt they had guessed right. Some even harbored intentions of flattering him. This also fit their personalities very well. After all, they used to do this often in their previous lives. Huang Miao said, "Lin Shi, I'm Huang Miao. We were in the same high school class. We're old classmates. Let's help each other out from now on." "I'm Lin Shi, but who are you people? I don't remember." Lin Shi didn't want to interact with these people. In his previous life, these people were all more or less involved in his death, especially Zhao Xiao and Su Qin, whom Lin Shi had killed with his own hands. If they hadn't come looking for trouble themselves, he wouldn't care if they lived or died. Huang Miao and the others looked a bit embarrassed. Only Su Feifei tried to blink her eyes, trying to look a bit more cute and pretty. "I'm Su Feifei. We went to the same high school before. This is Zhao Xiao. He even went to the same middle school as you." Zhao Xiao was getting a bit impatient. "Lin Shi, stop pretending. You know us. How can an evolver have such a bad memory?" Among the crowd entering and leaving the base, there were people who knew Zhao Xiao. Seeing Zhao Xiao and his group surrounding someone said, "Hey, isn't that Zhao Xiao with his lackeys and his harem? Who's the guy next to him? I don't know, don't recognize him. Probably an acquaintance of his. Looks about the same age. Must be Zhao Xiao's new lackey. I really envy Zhao Xiao, actually unlocking the Tier 2 gene. It's unimaginably easy to get promoted in the base now. Yeah, his parents are truly powerful people. If he wasn't a Tier 2 evolver, he would have been beaten to death long ago. Keep your voice down. If you keep talking, we might be the ones getting beaten to death later." Lin Shi heard the whispers nearby. He sneered at the jealousy in Zhao Zhao's eyes and said, "Since you know I don't want to know you, yet you still shamelessly come here to bother me. I have things to do. Get out of the way." After saying that, his aura turned cold. Su Feifei was frightened by Lin Shi's gaze and involuntarily took a step back. "Zhao Xiao, However, didn't want to let Lin Shi go. The sight of Captain who respectfully leading Lin Shi into the base earlier made Zhao Xiao very uncomfortable. You have connections with the higher-ups in the base, don't you? Captain who led you in just now. Lin Shi sneered, not wanting to waste another word on these people. He turned to leave. Seeing Lin Shi ignoring him, Zhao Xiao thought he had guessed right. In the past, Lin Shi was a good student, excellent in every aspect, and his family was rich. But being a good student in the past didn't mean he could unlock his genes now. Zhao Xiao shouted loudly at Lin Shi's back. You're just relying on your family's connections. What are you putting on airs for, Lin Shi? You're exactly the same now as you were in school. Don't think that just because you have some connections, you're better than others. Sooner or later, you'll learn that true strength is everything. Those things you used to be so proud of are nothing but child's play. Lin Shi stopped in his tracks. Actually, Lin Shi never considered himself some kind of master. He just relied on his strength. Lin Shi also didn't understand why Zhao Xiao was so jealous and resentful of him. Clearly, in this life, the two of them had barely seen each other. Lin Shi turned his head to look back. Quite a few people had stopped because of Zhao Xiao's loud shouting. Whispers and discussions arose. Many were making wild guesses about Lin Shi's identity, but Lin Shi didn't care about any of that. Lin Shi looked at Zhao Xiao. You seem to really hate me. What? Zhao Xiao gritted his teeth. He hated Lin Shi because, in middle school, he was one of the two best sports students in the school. Thanks to his athletic prowess, he was loved by many girls. But ever since Lin Shi transferred to their school, everything changed. Zhao Xiao wasn't good at studying, but Lin Shi excelled in everything. Especially during a running competition. Everyone thought Zhao Xiao would definitely win because running fast was always his strong suit. Yet, he was surpassed by Lin Shi, a non-sports student, by a large margin. This made Zhao Xiao feel his self-esteem was trampled on. From then on, the girls who used to surround Zhao Xiao mostly shifted their attention to Lin Shi. Their gossip also revolved entirely around Lin Shi. This made Zhao Xiao so jealous he went crazy. He constantly looked for opportunities to take revenge on Lin Shi. Later, Zhao Xiao got into high school thanks to his sports specialty and ended up in the same class as Lin Shi. But in high school, Lin Shi stood out even more. But that was all in the past. Not wanting others to think he was petty, Zhao Xiao couldn't possibly bring up the past now. Regardless, his jealousy and resentment toward Lin Shi had never changed. Today, seeing Captain who respectfully escort Lin Shi into the base, and seeing Lin Shi attract everyone's attention again, the jealousy in his heart made him recall his school days. I don't hate you. You're overthinking it, Zhao Xiao said stubbornly. What happened in school is in the past. Anyway, the apocalypse is here now. Those things from the past are just child's play. Lin Shi's current identity wasn't something he could mess with. Zhao Xiao felt he had been too impulsive just now. He should be improving his relationship with Lin Shi instead. But seeing Lin Shi's calm demeanor, Zhao Xiao really wanted to punch him in the face. Lin Shi frowned in disgust. Seeing Lin Shi about to leave, Zhao Xiao hurriedly asked, Wait, what floor are you on? What's your room number? On the lower levels of the base, every household had a corresponding floor and room number. Zhao Xiao wanted to show off in front of Lin Shi, so naturally, he wanted to know where Lin Shi lived. Well, oh, I don't live here, Lin Shi smiled. I live in another base, 100 kilometers away. This time, Lin Shi didn't stop anymore and quickly left, leaving Zhao Xiao and his group dumbfounded, along with a few onlookers watching the drama. I remember now. A base 100 kilometers away. Isn't that the base of that hidden family? Huang Miao looked at Lin Shi's retreating back, stunned for a long time before speaking. A group of onlookers whispered among themselves. Was that person your classmate just now? Impressive. He's definitely from the hidden family. That hidden family seems to be surnamed Lin too. I remember their headquarters is called the Lin family base. They called that person Lin Shi just now. Oh my god, Zhao Xiao actually has a classmate from the hidden family. I heard everyone in the Lin family base is an evolver. It's full of tier 2 evolvers. Then Zhao Xiao can go anywhere he wants in the base from now on. The people who were initially a bit afraid of Zhao Xiao and his friends now looked at them with even more apprehension. Many who were just gossiping and bad-mouthing Zhao Xiao immediately lowered their heads and backed away. As for Zhao Xiao and his friends, they stood frozen in place, shocked by Lin Shi's identity. Su Feifei covered her mouth in astonishment. Lin Shi, he's from the Lin family base. Su Qin's eyes also constantly flashed with different emotions. He's from the hidden family. Zhao Xiao was dumbfounded. No wonder, Captain who was so respectful to him. He felt his face burning. Luckily, he didn't show off in front of Lin Shi just now. If he had known Lin Shi was from the Lin family base, he should have had a better attitude earlier. The resources in the Lin family base weren't something ordinary people like them could compare to. Their base had over 1 billion people, while the Lin family base only had a little over 100,000. The amount of resources one could obtain was unimaginably different. Zhao Xiao secretly regretted it. Zhao Xiao, should we go visit the Lin family base? After all, our old classmate is there. Su Feifei tugged at Zhao Xiao's sleeve, shaking it, pretending to be coquettish, but her heart had already flown to Lin Shi. The person was already far away. Zhao Xiao pulled Su Feifei back. Yeah, of course we have to go. At this moment, Zhao Xiao had no mood for jealousy. As long as they could rely on their connection with the hidden family, they could become famous throughout. The apocalypse. Let's find out the situation of the hidden family in a few days first. Their headquarters is very far from here. There will be origin beasts on the way. We also need to carefully plan our retreat route. Su Feifei thought of Lin Shi's handsome face and his mysterious aura. She felt that compared to Lin Shi, Zhao Xiao looked so ordinary now. She subtly pulled away from Zhao Zhao's grasp. Huang Miao's eyes also sparkled, secretly calculating his own plans. They didn't know that Lin Shi wasn't an ordinary member of the Lin family base, but the one in power, the patriarch of the Lin family, and also their protective talisman. Lin Shi left the base and flew back to the Lin family. He told Lin Rongshuan and Qi Qiaoyue about his upcoming long journey, conveniently taking the Demon King and all the origin beasts with him. Little Vine wasn't left behind either. As for the rest, Lin Shi didn't take anyone. He left them at the base at home, and only returned to the official base the next day. The base had prepared all night. This time they were going to the continent, so they prepared snowmobiles. Snowmobiles couldn't be as fast as pre-apocalyptic highways. As long as they paid attention to the road, they could travel. Besides Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui, there was also a group of soldiers, weapons, and a large amount of supplies to bring along. Because this time they were facing not just a few hundred or a few thousand people, but over 10 million people. Since the other party intended to invade Xia country and cause trouble for them, with such a large number, Lin Shi couldn't possibly handle it all alone. Lin Shi could at most capture the ringleader. Those small fry still had to be handed over to Lin Tianrui and his subordinates. Lin Tianrui secretly stored a portion of the supplies in Lin Shi's space, just in case. On the second day, Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui led the massive convoy and set off, heading towards Asen country. What surprised Lin Shi was that Zhao Xiao was also in the convoy this time. The number of Tier 2 evolvers wasn't high right now. Zhao Xiao was one of them. Therefore, he inevitably got drafted. To allow these Tier 2 evolvers to contribute their strength, the government specially equipped them with Tier 1 origin weapons. These origin weapons were also used as rewards for this mission. As for the ordinary soldiers, each was equipped with a gun. Not the conventional firearms from before the apocalypse, but the armor-piercing guns Lin Shi brought back from the previous apocalypse, which could be used effectively in harsh conditions. After Lin Shi handed these guns over to the government, the Scientific Research Institute manufactured a large number of them based on pre-apocalyptic technology and stored them in the base's armory. This type of gun could deal damage to ordinary Tier 3 evolvers and also injure Tier 3 origin beasts. Because of their immense power, ammunition hadn't been distributed yet to avoid causing instability. The snowmobile sped across the vast snowfield. In just half a day, the convoy had traveled hundreds of kilometers away from the base. Asen country wasn't too far from the government base, about 3,000 kilometers. This time, they would pass through Zhong country, Mian country, and then reach Asen country. At their current speed, the convoy would only need about a day and a night to arrive. At noon, the convoy stopped to rest. After lunch, Lin Tianrui and the others checked their heading and current location, discovering they had entered Zhong country's territory. Zhong country's territory was extremely quiet. Almost no human figures could be seen, only desolate, deserted buildings, more than half covered by snow. To speed up, The convoy didn't pass through cities, but went straight through relatively open areas. Only Lin Shi continuously used his mental energy to scan along the way. He found that there wasn't a single living person in the entire Zhong country territory, and very few origin beasts. As evening fell, they had left Zhong country. The convoy repaired the vehicles and refueled the snowmobiles again. While the soldiers were preparing dinner, Lin Tianrui said, "Tonight, we will continue our journey. Our speed might be a bit slower at night. At that time, everyone turn on your walkie-talkies and follow my commands." At night, Lin Shi would be the eyes of the convoy. He would use his mental energy to scout the path. If there were any anomalies on the road or if origin beasts appeared, Lin Shi would warn them in advance. And so, after a hasty dinner, the convoy set off again. The sky quickly darkened, as if a giant black curtain covered the world. The headlights of the convoy formed a long trail of light, stretching endlessly into the distance. At first, everything went smoothly. Under Lin Shi's guidance and Lin Tianrui's command, no incidents occurred. Until near midnight, Lin Shi suddenly said, "Speed up." Lin Tianrui, sitting in the back, in the same row as Lin Shi, was slightly startled. He immediately spoke into the walkie-talkie. "Everyone speed up. Follow the flashing headlights of the lead vehicle." The lead vehicle was driven by Lin Tianrui's trusted aide. Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi brought up the rear to prevent any vehicles from falling behind. Following Lin Tianrui's orders, all the snowmobiles accelerated. Turn left 30 degrees ahead. Turn right 45 degrees. Keep going. Stop. Lin Tianrui continuously commanded the convoy according to Lin Shi's directions. Until Lin Shi ordered them to stop, all the vehicles halted. Lin Tianrui asked anxiously, "What's wrong, brother Lin?" After getting to know each other, Lin Shi allowed Lin Tianrui to call him that. "We're surrounded by a pack of origin beasts," Lin Shi said calmly, startling Lin Tianrui. Earlier, Lin Shi's order to speed up was to break through the origin beasts' encirclement. Because they were traveling at night, the headlights had attracted the beast pack. He tried once but failed. However, this was within Lin Shi's expectations. To Lin Shi, this was just a minor issue. "Everyone." Lin Tianrui was about to use the walkie-talkie to order the soldiers to prepare for battle, but Lin Shi interrupted him. "No need. Don't let them get out of the cars. Turn off all the lights. It'll be fine in a moment." Lin Tianrui was stunned. He knew Lin Shi's strength. If Lin Shi took action, any trouble could be resolved. So he immediately changed his order. "Everyone stay in your vehicles. Do not panic. Turn off the lights immediately." Following Lin Tianrui's order, the bright headlights instantly went out. The surroundings plunged into endless darkness. At this moment, outside the car, one couldn't even see their own fingers. Without a single ray of moonlight or starlight, it was like being lost in a thick fog. In such pitch-black darkness, for cultivators who hadn't reached Tier 3 or above, it was completely impossible to see anything outside the car windows. A sense of fear washed over them, making them shudder. Except for Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi's car, everyone in the other vehicles was extremely tense, gripping the weapons in their hands tightly, their eyes staring into the vast darkness. As the seconds ticked by, everyone's nerves grew even more taut. Suddenly, a tiny sound rang out. At first, the sound was very faint, but it quickly became clear. It was the rapid sound of footsteps, as if countless feet were trampling on the thick snow, making crunching noises. "Is it a pack of origin beasts?" "Ah!" A cultivator in a car screamed, but his mouth was quickly covered by the soldier next to him. In such darkness, encountering a pack of origin beasts meant certain death for low-tier cultivators. Because they didn't have night vision, they couldn't see the positions of the origin beasts in the dark at all. But the origin beasts could see them. At this moment, many people, especially the cultivators recruited for this mission, inwardly blamed Lin Tianrui for making them travel at night. But their anxiety only lasted for a few seconds. In the darkness, the sound of weapons piercing flesh rang out, followed by the miserable howls of origin beasts and the sound of blood gushing. These sounds came and went quickly. Very soon, the surroundings fell silent again. The others didn't know what had happened outside. Only Lin Tianrui stared in shock at Lin Shi, who had remained seated in the car from beginning to end. Just as the beast pack was about to approach the convoy, Lin Tianrui suddenly saw a barrage of giant swords appear from the void, slashing down at the beast pack. The giant swords moved without anyone wielding them, hovering in midair, flying and slashing, mercilessly reaping the lives of every origin beast. The scene was simply a one-sided massacre. After the origin beasts were wiped out, the giant swords and their corpses all vanished into the void. If it weren't for the still wet bloodstains on the ground, Lin Tianrui would have almost thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Let's keep moving. Lin Shi leisurely shifted his sitting posture to be more comfortable, then closed his eyes to rest. The convoy set off again. Except for the only person in the group who had reached Tier 3 evolution, the others didn't know what had just happened. But they knew the danger had passed. It was just that many people remained anxious until midnight. When the road ahead was safe and sound, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Occasionally, a few stray origin beasts blocked the road. Lin Shi only needed a thought to control an origin weapon to kill them and store them in his space. This didn't slow down the convoy's progress at all. Thus, before sunrise, the convoy successfully entered Asen country's territory. As the sky gradually brightened, the convoy stopped again. This time they needed a long rest. The convoy had been traveling for almost a day and a night. Both the people and the snowmobiles needed rest, because next, they could encounter the people from the dynasty at any moment. Lin Tianrui ordered everyone to rest on the spot. Some stood guard, while others set up snow tents and lit fires to cook. At the same time, ammunition was distributed. Not long after, Lin Tianrui brought Lin Shi a bowl of hot soup. Lin Shi accepted it without standing on ceremony. He took out food from his space, eating and drinking. After finishing his meal, Lin Shi got out of the car to stretch his muscles, then practiced a set of health-preserving martial arts on the snow to warm up. Just as he finished his movements, a voice rang out beside him. That set of movements seems different from the official one. It was Zhao Xiao. He had been standing there watching Lin Shi for quite a while. Lin Shi had noticed Zhao Xiao early on, but let him watch. This health-preserving martial art was much harder than the official modified resonance set. It required coordination with breathing techniques. Even if Zhao Xiao memorized all the movements, he wouldn't be able to practice it. Even if he could, it didn't matter to Lin Shi at all. Leveling up always depended on the maximum limit of mental energy, not a set of health-preserving martial arts. Lin Shi, your family is also participating in this mission? I only just noticed you in the convoy. It's so great to run into you again in this foreign land. Actually, Zhao Xiao had seen Lin Shi early on and had always been paying attention to him. Seeing Lin Shi not saying anything, Zhao Xiao continued, "Seeing you again, I feel very close to you. Even though we didn't interact much before, in my impression, you were always a very good person." Lin Shi raised an eyebrow, looking at Zhao Xiao with a faint smile. "Is that so? I think so too." Zhao Xiao thought Lin Shi would be modest, saying something like, no, not at all. Hearing Lin Shi's blunt reply, he was instantly stunned. You're really humorous. What tier are you at now? Seeing you chatting with Vice Leader Lin like that, could it be that you've already unlocked the Tier 3 gene? Zhao Xiao stared at Lin Shi, probing. Zhao Xiao had noticed Lin Shi traveling with this convoy early on. After all, Lin Shi was always standing next to Lin Tianrui. It was hard not to notice. During breaks, Lin Shi would also get out of the car to get some fresh air. Lin Tianrui even took the initiative to bring water and food to Lin Shi. Even the most oblivious person in the group had heard everyone mentioning Lin Shi's high status. Faced with Zhao Zhao's question, Lin Shi neither admitted nor denied it. So powerful. As expected of you. Wherever you go, you're a dragon among men. Seeing Lin Shi tacitly agree, Zhao Xiao was both scared and jealous, but he didn't dare show it on his face. At this moment, he already considered Lin Shi a solid backer, harboring thoughts of using him. Naturally, he couldn't reveal his true thoughts. Resting in the parked car, Lin Shi was bored and wanted to tease Zhao Xiao. "That's right, I am quite capable. Seeing as we used to know each other, I'll give you the chance to be my servant." The corners of Lin Shi's mouth curled up slightly, watching Zhao Zhao's flattering expression suddenly change, becoming angry and uncomfortable. But Zhao Xiao, having disguised himself for so long in front of Lin Shi, quickly regained his composure. "Haha, Lin Shi, you really know how to joke. Zhao Xiao forced a smile. If anyone else had said that to him, even a fellow Tier 2 evolver, Zhao Xiao would have punched them. But Lin Shi, in his eyes now, was a Tier 3 evolver. He didn't dare. If you don't want to, then forget it. After saying that, Lin Shi closed his eyes to rest, acting as if he didn't want to pay attention to Zhao Xiao anymore. Zhao Xiao's eyes flickered rapidly. In the end, he chose benefits over pride. He gritted his teeth and asked, "What are the benefits of being your servant?" Lin Shi smiled faintly and opened his eyes, a teasing glint in them. Of course there are. Lin Shi let Zhao Xiao sit in Lin Tianrui's car. Originally, the passenger seat belonged to one of Lin Tianrui's adjutants, but now it was given to Zhao Xiao. Zhao Xiao felt as if he had been granted a great favor. This was his first time being in such close contact with the base's vice leader. He immediately felt that being a servant was very much worth it. If he could climb up Lin Tianrui's big tree, his status in the base would be elevated. Lin Tianrui had no objections to Lin Shi's arrangement, but still asked doubtfully, "Brother Lin, you know Zhao Xiao?" As someone who knew the identities of all the Tier 2 evolvers in the base, Lin Tianrui naturally knew Zhao Xiao. Before Lin Shi could answer, Zhao Xiao turned around and respectfully said to Lin Tianrui, "How are you, Leader Lin? I'm Lin Shi's old classmate." After saying that, he even reached out his hand to shake Lin Tianrui's. Even the other adjutant sitting next to Lin Tianrui stared intently at Zhao Xiao. He remembered clearly that the person sitting next to the leader was the patriarch of the renowned Lin family. This person was actually the old classmate of the Lin family patriarch. Did the Lin family patriarch actually go to a normal school? What kind of luck did this Zhao Xiao stumble upon? Lin Tianrui also sized Zhao Xiao up carefully. Seeing Zhao Xiao's flattering gaze and somewhat unseemly expression, Lin Tianrui frowned slightly. But he still intended to give Lin Shi face and shake Zhao Xiao's hand. But then Lin Shi chimed in just in time. "Used to be, right? Used to be classmates for a while, but now he's my servant." The smile on Zhao Xiao's face froze. Lin Tianrui, who was about to shake hands, turned it into a slap on his own thigh. "So that's how it is. Don't worry, Brother Lin. The person you favor, our base will absolutely not fight over. Zhao Xiao, right? I've decided. From now on, you follow Brother Lin. You don't need to return to the base anymore." Zhao Xiao was dumbfounded. Was he kicked out of the base? But thinking about it again, Zhao Xiao cheered up. Since the base wanted to kick him out, he could follow Lin Shi back to the Lin family base from now on. He heard that the treatment at the Lin family base was much better than the government bases. The resources there were truly beyond people's imagination. Overjoyed, Zhao Xiao immediately said, "Thank you, Leader Lin." From then on, Zhao Xiao began to serve Lin Shi, doing all sorts of chores like a servant. Lin Shi took this opportunity to comfortably order Zhao Xiao around. As for taking Zhao Xiao back to the family base, he never promised Zhao Xiao anything. In the convoy, a few people who knew Zhao Xiao, especially those who previously saw him as the strongest in the base, couldn't help but feel suspicious when they saw him suddenly serving someone else. When Zhao Xiao went to pour hot water and wipe Lin Shi's hands again, he was stopped by a few evolvers. "Zhao Xiao, what are you doing? Haven't seen you for a bit, and you're already acting like someone's dog? TSK, TSK, TSK. Turns out even you, Zhao Xiao, have a day where you have to serve others, huh?" Zhao Xiao was already annoyed at being stopped, but hearing these mocking and provocative words, he couldn't help but retort. "What do you know, you bunch of frogs in a well? Don't think just anyone can make me serve them. They are no ordinary people." Seeing Zhao Xiao's expression, the others grew even more suspicious. "You got into Vice Leader Lin's car? Who else is in the car?" I don't mind telling you. That's someone from the Lin family base. Once this mission is over, I'm joining the Lin family base too. We won't be on the same level anymore." "What? The Lin family base? That hidden family?" "Exactly. Better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. What do you get from working like horses and oxen in the base? The base gives you a little bit, then sends you on dangerous missions. But I'm different. I'm about to become a member of the hidden family. The resources I'll get in the future are things you can't even imagine." An evolver who usually didn't get along with Zhao Xiao said, "Don't get cocky too early. Even if you're telling the truth, you're just a servant of the Lin family base. Do you think you're an official member?" Zhao Xiao smiled mysteriously. "Haven't you guys noticed? Noticed what? Even Leader Lin has to treat that person respectfully. Do you think he's just an ordinary figure in the hidden family? I'll tell you the truth. That person is a Tier 3 evolver. Moreover, he's my old classmate. Because of our old ties, being a servant is just a way for me to enter the Lin family. Did you really think I, Zhao Xiao, would actually be a servant? A Tier 3 evolver? The group looked at each other, speechless. A Tier 3 in their eyes was already a peak powerhouse. There was a massive gap between Tier 2 and Tier 3. Someone who unlocked the Tier 2 gene might not necessarily unlock the Tier 3 gene, because Tier 3 required immense mental energy to unlock. Without mental energy, no matter how many resources one absorbed, they couldn't level up. Seeing his goal achieved, Zhao Xiao puffed out his chest and walked away. He didn't know that he was just Lin Shi's entertainment toy. The others rested or exercised as they pleased. Lin Tianrui and the adjutant were directing the soldiers' work. Just as Lin Shi was ordering Zhao Xiao around again, he suddenly changed his tone. There's a group of people approaching from the west. Actually, Lin Shi had spotted them from far away. The purpose of this trip, besides contacting the dynasty base, was another goal: to intercept the people from the dynasty who were preparing to enter Xia country's territory. Therefore, Lin Shi didn't let the command vehicle detour around that group. And that group had also spotted them. Because they were all riding origin beasts as warhorses, and origin beasts had an extremely keen sense of smell. So, they headed in this direction. It was just that the distance between the two sides was still quite far. Lin Tianrui was resting with his eyes closed in the car. Hearing Lin Shi's voice, he immediately opened his eyes. He picked up the walkie-talkie and said, "Everyone, prepare for battle." Encountering people in this place, it was very likely the people from the dynasty of Asen country, just as the scouts had reported. Zhao Xiao hadn't noticed anything yet. Looking around, he still only saw a vast expanse of white snow. Where are the people? Lin Tianrui, who was also acting as the driver, took out his binoculars to observe, but saw no one. Binoculars had a limited field of view. The adjutant knew Lin Shi's identity, so he didn't doubt him at all. However, after borrowing the adjutant's binoculars to look around, Zhao Xiao became suspicious. There's no one there. The surroundings were empty. The others were also unclear. They didn't understand why Lin Tianrui ordered them to prepare for battle. The soldiers who had just fallen asleep were startled awake by the combat alarm. As a result, there was nothing around. But Lin Tianrui had already ordered the logistics adjutant to distribute weapons and ammunition. The soldiers loaded their guns. Then, under Lin Tianrui's command, they set up obstacles and defensive fortifications. Until everyone was ready, the enemy's shadow still hadn't appeared. This made many evolvers feel cheated. Where's the enemy? You said there was an enemy, but they still haven't shown up. Isn't this just messing with us? Only Zhao Xiao knew that all these preparations were based on Lin Shi's words that someone was approaching. He didn't understand why Lin Tianrui trusted Lin Shi so much, but he didn't question it either. The soldiers were still very obedient. Therefore, there was no resistance whatsoever. It wasn't until a few minutes later that everyone felt the ground shaking. Very quickly, on the vast snowfield in the distance, a pack of origin beasts appeared. As they got closer, everyone could clearly see that it was a group of people riding origin beasts, heading straight towards them. Based on the estimated scale, there were at least over 1,000 people, and the leader was actually a woman in red. There really are people coming. Zhao Xiao looked at Lin Shi with a gaze full of bewilderment. The other party obviously didn't expect Lin Tianrui to be fully prepared and waiting for them. Therefore, when they were still about 1,000 meters away, the woman in red ordered the origin beast pack to stop. "Everyone stop. I'll go alone," Shuiyu said to her subordinates behind her, then rode the largest Bengal ice tiger towards them alone. Her Bengal ice tiger was a Tier 4 origin beast. After so many months into the apocalypse, an origin beast of this level was already considered a beast king. Equivalent to the previous life, why did a saber-toothed tiger of that level appear? Lin Tianrui signaled his subordinates. "Don't shoot." He looked at Lin Shi. Lin Shi said, "Let's go take a look." He had already sensed that this woman was intentionally hiding her 7th tier origin power aura. Excellent. He had caught the first person he was looking for. Lin Shi suppressed his origin power to the 4th tier level and walked towards the woman with Lin Tianrui. One in front, one behind. Seeing the two approaching, Shuiyu immediately used her mental energy to scan Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui. Discovering that Lin Shi had 4th-tier origin power fluctuations and Lin Tianrui was at the 3rd tier, her eyes instantly filled with contempt. She didn't even dismount from her mount, just sat on the tiger's back looking down at the two. A sharp aura radiated out, pressing down heavily on them. Who are you? Why are you here? This is our territory. Enduring the pressure, Lin Tianrui replied neither haughtily nor humbly. We are people of Xia country. We heard there is a dynasty base here, so we came to visit. Seeing that the two weren't afraid of her pressure at all, Shuiyu thought a little more highly of them. But only a little. Oh, so you're from Xia country. Perfect timing. We're also about to head to Xia country. By the way, have you heard of a Xia country person named Lin Shi? Shuiyu looked at the two. Shuiyu had never met Lin Shi. Before reversing time, when she and Qi Sheng arrived on the blue planet, it was already the 5th year of the apocalypse. At first, the government searched across all countries for survivors to sacrifice to the primordial pillar. Shuiyu and Qi Sheng knew the situation with the primordial pillar clearly, so they hid early on. They weren't found, but they caught a few soldiers and interrogated them strictly to find out who was in power and the strongest at that time. Learning about Lin Shi's level and miraculous abilities, the two concluded that Lin Shi was the one possessing the treasure bowl of this era. Until Lin Shi reversed time, the two borrowed their old bodies to return to 3 years before the apocalypse began. This time, they also had a vessel. Shuiyu thought they definitely weren't weaker than Lin Shi. Furthermore, they had other methods. So this time, Shuiyu wanted to go to Xia country to find Lin Shi and meet him face to face. Shuiyu didn't know at this moment that Lin Shi already knew of the existence of the people from the Tricontinent, because she couldn't have imagined that there was still someone on this blue planet who had lived since 10,000 years ago. It could be said that this time, they had been left far behind by Lin Shi in terms of information. Hearing Shuiyu mention Lin Shi's name, Lin Tianrui tactfully didn't look at Lin Shi. He blinked slightly, frowned, and said, Lin Shi? Is that a snack? Are you asking if this is a person's name? Lin Shi also didn't change his expression. A thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. His reaction to hearing his own name, without being overly surprised, was very natural. This made Shuiyu suspicious. Could it be that Lin Shi didn't take any action this time? She suspected the two were lying, but couldn't find any evidence. Lin Shi casually glanced at Shuiyu, his gaze lingering on her earring for a moment before naturally moving away. Shuiyu didn't suspect Lin Shi's gaze. She thought it was normal for men to look at a beautiful woman like herself. After thinking for a moment, Shuiyu thought that perhaps Lin Shi was using a different name this time, so it was possible these two didn't know Lin Shi. Then does your Xia country have anyone very strong? I like strong people and want to make friends, Shuiyu asked again. Lin Tianrui was no fool. He had already realized that this woman was targeting Lin Shi. He immediately put on a thoughtful expression, thinking of how to answer without revealing any flaws. Lin Shi replied, yes. Lin Tianrui looked at Lin Shi in surprise, not understanding why Lin Shi admitted it directly. Shuiyu stared intently at Lin Shi, pressing, who is it? Lin Shi looked like he wanted to speak, but hesitated, a conflicted expression appearing on his face. Actually, I'm not sure if that person is the one or not. He crossed his arms, looking at Shuiyu, and said warily, how do I know you don't have an ulterior motive? Those who are not of our kind are sure to have different intentions. The woman in front of him was a 7th-tier evolver. This level appearing only a few months into the apocalypse was very abnormal. Moreover, this woman seemed to have rough hands and feet, as if left by years of hard labor, but her eyes carried an arrogant, cold look. The disdain was obvious. To this woman, they were just moving NPCs. Meeting someone from the Sanlian continent, Lin Shi naturally couldn't just kill her outright. He wanted to know exactly what kind of vessel the Sanlian continent used to send people to the blue planet, how they traveled through these vessels, what their purpose was, why they were looking for him, how many more people over there were eyeing the blue planet, and what kind of trump card Shuiyu had. He didn't believe that this woman came just to admire him. Since the other party knew Lin Shi's name and actively approached him, perhaps this woman had arrived on the blue planet before he activated the heaven and earth reversal, and just hadn't met him yet. Shuiyu was losing her patience. To get information about Lin Shi, She tried to stay calm, smiled, and even got off her mount. I bring the sincerity of our base to establish friendly relations with the Xia country base, she said. She had already made up her mind. If she couldn't get the answer she wanted, she would capture and interrogate them. Shui Yu waved her hand, and her subordinates brought out a large amount of supplies for Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui to see. Lin Shi's eyes lit up, seemingly lowering his guard. Seeing Lin Shi act so impulsively, Lin Tianrui somewhat understood what he was trying to do, though not entirely. Suddenly catching on, Lin Tianrui pulled Lin Shi back. Hold on. He looked at Shui Yu. If you want to establish friendly relations with Xia country, then hand over the relief supplies to us first. Furthermore, how do you know there's someone named Lin Shi in Xia country? Shui Yu frowned. Those supplies were meant for her people to use on the road. She hadn't planned on giving them to the Xia country government, but now that the words were out, she couldn't take them back. She needed to gather information about Lin Shi before making a move. If she couldn't get anything out of them, she could just kill them and take the supplies back later. Shui Yu signaled her subordinate. The subordinate's face darkened upon hearing the order, but he still handed over more than half of the team's supplies to Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui. Before the apocalypse, our country's president managed to investigate some information about Lin Shi. There's no need for you to hide it. Leaders of other countries have probably heard the name Lin Shi as well. We sincerely came to build good relations. We just want to know what kind of outstanding talent this powerhouse, who has been preparing supplies for Xia country all this time, truly is. Shui Yu stared intently at Lin Shi, trying her best to make her voice sound gentle. Lin Tianrui suddenly understood. Seeing the time was right, Lin Shi looked up with a kind, harmless smile, just like Li Chun. It's Zhao Xiao. Yeah. Hiding behind the barricade observing the situation, Zhao Xiao suddenly sneezed. He saw Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui talking to the woman riding the tiger, but they were too far away to hear anything over the howling wind. Zhao Xiao wondered how Lin Shi knew so early that someone was approaching their convoy, and why Lin Tianrui trusted Lin Shi so immediately. But in his mind, Lin Shi was definitely a massive, sturdy tree to lean on. Zhao Xiao couldn't help but imagine that if he sided with Lin Shi, he would quickly rise in ranks, smoothly unlock his genes, and return to the government base to show off. He had no idea he had just been completely sold out by Lin Shi. Earlier, Lin Shi was talking to Shui Yu. I only have my suspicions, I'm not entirely sure. This person hides his strength. He publicly claims to be level 2, but I've seen him control flying weapons with my own eyes. His exact strength is unknown, but I feel he's not just a simple level 2. He's also connected to the hidden families, and those hidden families are incredibly mysterious. Lin Tianrui's mouth twitched. He hurriedly pulled Lin Shi's arm, hiding the change in his expression, and said, Brother Lin, don't say too much. Shui Yu's gaze sharpened as she looked at Lin Shi. Your surname is Lin? Yes, my name is Lin Tianya, and this is my older brother. Lin Tianrui. Lin Shi answered naturally, without a moment's hesitation. My name is Shui Yu. Shui Yu suddenly remembered she hadn't introduced herself. She looked at Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui suspiciously, but ultimately found nothing unusual. If he were the real Lin Shi, there was no way he would reveal the surname Lin so easily. Is that person in your convoy? Shui Yu swept her spiritual power over the convoy behind them, but didn't detect any high-level evolvers. She immediately felt a bit apprehensive. If the other party's level was higher than hers, she wouldn't be able to detect them at all. Lin Shi was about to continue speaking, but Lin Tianrui pulled him back again, seemingly trying to stop him. This scene was very obvious in Shui Yu's eyes. If the other party was from the government base, they naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to reveal all their information before knowing her true purpose. But this Lin Tianya looked very naive. Perhaps she could use him. Shui Yu thought to herself. Lin Tianrui blocked Shui Yu's gaze. Shui Yu still hadn't given up and said, We are guests from afar, planning to visit the Xia country base. Since we met on the road, could we travel together with you? Lin Tianrui found it hard to refuse. Refusing meant fracturing the relationship, turning from strangers into enemies. Since the other party hadn't shown their fangs yet, they couldn't make the first move either. More importantly, Lin Tianrui realized Lin Shi had other plans. Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi exchanged a glance. Lin Shi replied, You can travel with our convoy, but aren't you afraid of getting ambushed by them? That wouldn't be good. Shuiyu chuckled lightly. Of course not. Her sun-kissed brown skin and delicate facial features gave her a look that was both fierce and playful. Noticing Lin Tianya glancing at her multiple times, Shuiyu immediately felt he would be even easier to handle. She stared intently at Lin Shi. Lin Shi seemed a bit shy and hurriedly averted his gaze. Seeing this, Lin Tianrui quietly turned his face away. What was he supposed to do now? This was just too embarrassing. Shuiyu got into the vehicle, while the others from the dynasty base followed far behind. Lin Tianrui ordered his men to load Shuiyu's belongings onto the vehicle, then calmly commanded the convoy to head back. The purpose of their trip was to investigate the situation at the dynasty base. If the other party truly had malicious intentions, they would be ready for battle and wipe them out completely. Now that they had run into the main target halfway, and the other party had no intention of clashing, should they just kill them right away? This bizarre situation was completely beyond Lin Tianrui's expectations, but he was still ready to cooperate with Lin Shi. They would bring them back first to see what these people wanted with Lin Shi in Xia country. Yeah, most of the people in the convoy didn't recognize Lin Shi. Besides Zhao Xiao, only Lin Tianrui knew Lin Shi's real name. Lin Tianrui secretly arranged for Zhao Xiao to move to another snowmobile. After Shuiyu got into Lin Tianrui's vehicle, she sat right next to Lin Shi. Originally, only Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui were in the back of the snowmobile. Now that Shuiyu squeezed in to sit with Lin Shi, Lin Tianrui had no choice but to sit in the passenger seat. Along the way, Shuiyu constantly dropped hints to Fish for information from Lin Shi. At the same time, she enveloped the entire convoy with her spiritual power. When she heard someone mention the surname Zhao in another vehicle, Shuiyu's usually calm eyes suddenly lit up. In another snowmobile. After Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi returned to the convoy, Zhao Xiao was moved to another vehicle by Lin Tianrui. In Zhao Xiao's snowmobile right now were two people who had previously mocked him. Isn't this the servant of the hidden family? You were riding in the same car as Vice Leader Lin, so why did you get kicked out? One person asked in a sarcastic tone. The other chimed in. Probably just there to serve tea and pour water. Tossed aside once they're done with him. Zhao Xiao turned pale with anger. He couldn't start a fight in the car, but he wasn't about to lose a battle of words. An esteemed guest from country A wanted to ride in Leader Lin's car. I just gave up my seat temporarily. You guys haven't seen it. You're not jealous of me, are you? Why would we be jealous of you? We're all level 2 evolvers. Zhao Xiao, you're way too full of yourself. Exactly. Do you know why the leader suddenly ordered us to head back? One person suddenly asked Zhao Xiao. At that moment, the driver scolded them lightly. Base missions are classified. No one is allowed to discuss them casually. Ever since Zhao Xiao switched cars, the driver had changed from a regular soldier to Lin Tianrui's assistant. The other two curled their lips and stopped asking questions. In truth, Zhao Xiao didn't know why they had to turn back after completing their mission either. It probably had something to do with the group of people they met earlier, especially the woman who took his seat. Her beautiful face, full of Eastern charm, was even more stunning than Su Fei's face. And that woman was now sitting next to Lin Shi. Thinking of this, Zhao Xiao grew even more jealous of Lin Shi. Why did all the good things always fall into Lin Shi's lap? At this moment, Zhao Xiao still didn't know that a strand of spiritual power had locked onto him and hadn't left. Zhao Xiao was thinking about Shuiyu. Meanwhile, Lin Shi, sitting next to Shuiyu, had an unpredictable smile playing on his lips. Zhao Xiao. She had found him. Lin Shi seemed completely oblivious, turning his head to look out the car window at the vast expanse of white snow. Initially, he just wanted to mess with Zhao Xiao a bit, but now that 3 powerhouses from 3 different continents had appeared, he could put Zhao Xiao to good use. He would use Zhao Xiao to probe the intentions of this woman named Shuiyu. For the rest of the time, Shuiyu continued to make half-hearted conversation with Lin Shi. However, Lin Shi noticed that Shuiyu was no longer as eager and polite as she was at the beginning. Perhaps, right now, all this woman could think about was how to confirm whether Lin Shi was actually Zhao Xiao. The convoy stopped for a lunch break and prepared to eat. Zhao Xiao stepped out of the car to take a walk. Before long, he noticed a woman with a completely different complexion from everyone else walking toward him. Zhao Xiao recognized her. She was the one who had been talking to Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui from a distance earlier, and was later brought into their car. The convoy stopped, and the dynasty's team stopped as well, resting about 1,000 meters away from the government convoy. Shuiyu walked around her own team, said a few things, then strolled halfway around the convoy before heading straight for Zhao Xiao. Lin Tianrui noticed this and shot Lin Shi a puzzled look. Lin Shi caught his gaze, stepped out of the car, and casually started playing with the snow. A Stage 7 evolver could always perceive every movement in the convoy using their spiritual power, unless there were beings of a higher level than Stage 7. Shuiyu approached Zhao Xiao and greeted him in fluent Xia country language. "Hello, my name is Shuiyu." Seeing Shuiyu's exotic beauty and her brilliant amber eyes, Zhao Xiao couldn't tear his gaze away. He reached his hand out to Shuiyu. "Hello, I'm Zhao Xiao." Shuiyu narrowed her eyes and reached out, preparing to grasp Zhao Xiao's hand to probe him. But right at that moment, someone from behind suddenly bumped into Zhao Xiao. Zhao Xiao immediately pulled his hand back and shoved the person behind him. "What are you doing? Watch where you're going." The person behind him was a level 1 soldier, who apologized to Zhao Xiao and walked away. Zhao Xiao felt annoyed but didn't lose his temper. However, the soldier was a bit surprised as to why he had suddenly lost his footing, stumbled back a step, and bumped into Zhao Xiao. Nevertheless, the soldier didn't pay it much mind and went back to his duties. Since Zhao Xiao had already pulled his hand back, it was awkward to offer it again. Shuiyu also didn't reach out again to avoid making Zhao Xiao suspicious. If Zhao Xiao was truly the Lin Shi she was looking for, then as a powerhouse, he would definitely be very sharp. Therefore, Shuiyu struck up a conversation with Zhao Xiao. "Are you also from Xia country?" "Yes, I'm from Xia country." "How old are you?" Zhao Xiao stated his age. Zhao Xiao and Lin Shi were the same age, so Shuiyu had no doubts about this point. "You're so handsome. This is the first time I've seen a Xia country man as handsome as you. I find you very charming." Shuiyu pretended to be a shy little girl as she looked at Zhao Xiao. Zhao Xiao immediately felt like he was floating on cloud 9. In reality, he had an average appearance, just slightly taller than a normal person. His looks couldn't compare to Lin Shi's at all. Seeing Zhao Xiao unable to hide his delighted expression, Shuiyu began to doubt his identity in her heart. If this was the post-apocalyptic Lin Shi, he wouldn't show such an expression just from a few compliments from a woman, right? Of course, nothing was absolute. Who knows, maybe Lin Shi was just a lecher. Suspicious, Shuiyu reached out, intending to link arms with Zhao Xiao and pretend to be intimate with him. As long as there was physical contact, she could check the origin power inside Zhao Xiao's body, thereby determining if he was faking it, and see if the man in front of her was truly Lin Shi. Just as Shuiyu reached out, Zhao Xiao shifted slightly and dodged. His movement made it seem as if he had anticipated her intention. Initially, when Zhao Xiao saw Shuiyu trying to pull him close, he secretly rejoiced, thinking this exotic beauty wanted to throw herself into his arms. Unexpectedly, it felt like something gently pushed his foot. His body moved out of his control, leaning to the side. Annoyed, Zhao Xiao looked down at the ground but saw nothing. He had no choice but to say honestly, "Something on the ground pushed me." Shuiyu looked at her empty hand, not believing it, and reached out again. "It's fine." "Ugh." Zhao Xiao suddenly plopped down. For some reason, he felt a sharp, intense pain on the top of his foot, so painful that he had to squat down. The pain came and went in the blink of an eye, so fast that Zhao Xiao even suspected he was hallucinating. Besides, in front of a beautiful woman, it wasn't appropriate for him to take off his shoe to check. Seeing Shuiyu's astonished expression, Zhao Xiao hurriedly stood up and explained, "I suddenly saw something on the ground. I wasn't trying to avoid you on purpose." But in Shuiyu's heart, a massive storm was already brewing. At first, Shuiyu had looked down on Zhao Xiao, dismissing him as a lecher who couldn't be that strong even if he tried. She even doubted that the man in front of her was the Lin Shi she was looking for. But the other party had perfectly dodged her physical contact without leaving a single trace. 3 times in a row. Once could be a coincidence. Twice could also be a coincidence. But 3 times? This made Shuiyu absolutely certain that Zhao Xiao was the person she was looking for. He was playing the pig to eat the tiger. Shuiyu didn't dare to probe him carelessly anymore. She was worried Zhao Xiao would discover her intentions. At the same time, Shuiyu came up with a new plan to make Zhao Xiao lower his guard. Lin Shi was building a snowman, a faint smile on his lips. How could Zhao Xiao possibly dodge the tricks of a Stage 7 evolver like Shuiyu? It was all controlled by his spiritual power. His spiritual power was vastly stronger than Shui Yu's stage 7. He could use his mind to control anything within the range of his spiritual power. Fooling Shui Yu was as easy as flipping his hand. The convoy continued on its way. This time, Shui Yu actively asked to ride in the same car as Zhao Xiao, but was flatly refused by Lin Tianrui. This left Zhao Xiao a bit disappointed, but it only made Shui Yu even more certain that Zhao Xiao was the person she was looking for. The journey back was much smoother than the trip there. Since they had already cleared out the origin beasts and obstacles on the road during their departure, they arrived back in Xia country that very night. The distance to the government base was only a little over 100 miles away. Lin Tianrui decided to let everyone rest where they were. The next morning, the group would return to the base. Therefore, everyone just slept in their vehicles. After midnight, Shui Yu opened her eyes, glanced at the soundly sleeping Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi, and whispered, "I'm stepping out for a bit." With that, she opened the car door and got out. In the darkness, Lin Shi opened his eyes and looked at Lin Tianrui with a slightly guarded gaze, understanding what Lin Tianrui was worried about. Lin Shi used voice transmission to speak into his ear, "I'm keeping an eye on her." However, Shui Yu wasn't just simply going to the bathroom. She deliberately walked past Zhao Zhao's car, looked around with a frightened expression, and knocked on his car window. "Sorry to bother you. I want to step out for a bit, but I'm really scared." Shui Yu's noise woke up everyone in the car. In the dark, they couldn't see Shui Yu clearly. They only heard a woman's voice. Zhao Xiao recognized Shui Yu's voice and immediately said, "I'll go with you." After saying that, he got out of the car. Once outside, Zhao Xiao realized he couldn't see a thing in the pitch black. Why did he even get out of the car? A cold wind blew past, sobering Zhao Xiao up and making him shiver. Right at that moment, he suddenly felt a wave of chaos in his mind, followed by the appearance of a panoramic, radar-like image. This image was even clearer than seeing with his naked eyes. Zhao Xiao looked toward Shui Yu standing on the other side of the car. In his eyes, Shui Yu's figure transformed into a model, every detail of her body appearing vividly in his mind. Under the freezing night sky, with only the two of them around, Zhao Xiao felt the blood rush to his face. He took the initiative to walk toward Shui Yu. Seeing Zhao Xiao get out of the car and head straight for her, the last of Shui Yu's doubts about Zhao Xiao not being Lin Shi vanished. On the surface, Zhao Xiao only had level 2 strength. But a true level 2 wouldn't be able to see clearly in the dark without assistive equipment. The fact that Zhao Xiao could see in the dark proved his level wasn't just level 2. He was above level 2, and someone whose strength she couldn't see through. Only someone stronger than her could do that. Shui Yu's beautiful eyes flashed with seduction. She concluded that the man in front of her was exactly the Lin Shi they were looking for. To think that this time, Lin Shi was still one step ahead of them. Shui Yu smiled to herself, then thought that with Lin Shi's strength, he had definitely discovered her level and noticed her little tricks. But so what? Lin Shi absolutely didn't know that she wasn't from this planet. He probably just thought she was seducing him. But she had a fatal trump card waiting for Lin Shi. Shui Yu waved her hand, signaling Zhao Xiao to follow, then led him toward a snow-covered slope in the distance. Seeing Shui Yu's movements, Lin Shi knew this woman had taken the bait. The image Zhao Xiao saw was, of course, caused by Lin Shi attaching his powerful spiritual power to Zhao Zhao's underdeveloped consciousness, allowing him to temporarily use a type of spiritual ability to control a spiritual force field. At this moment, Lin Shi couldn't help but be curious. Now that Shui Yu was certain Zhao Xiao was Lin Shi, what would she do next? Holding on to that anticipation, he continued to monitor the situation. Shui Yu led Zhao Xiao behind a snow-covered slope, then slowly took off her clothes. Soon after, a blush-inducing, heart-pounding scene gradually unfolded behind the snowy slope. Lin Shi eagerly used his spiritual power to quietly observe everything, as if enjoying a bizarre play. But Zhao Xiao couldn't hold back anymore. Driven by excitement, he lunged forward, hugged Shui Yu tightly, and kissed her fiercely on the lips, completely unaware of the impending danger. Shui Yu's vessel had the ability to absorb the origin power within a person's body. When she kissed someone, Shui Yu could use the kiss to drain the other party's origin power or transfer her own origin power to them. She and Qi Sheng had used this method to coordinate and unlock their stage 7 genes. To them, having their consciousness enter this world was just like playing a massive role-playing game. Their ultimate goal was to borrow the bodies of these two NPCs to complete the main quest, dominating the world, and then transmitting all the matter of the human era and origin beasts through the origin pillar back to the Sanlian continent. As for what they did in the game, to them, it was just a virtual yet highly stimulating experience. The uncontrollable Lin Shi and the cornucopia were obstacles to Shui Yu and Qi Sheng completing their mission. Therefore, Shui Yu absolutely had to eliminate or kill Lin Shi to achieve their ultimate goal. Shui Yu actively responded to Zhao Xiao. The heat of her body contrasted sharply with the coldness in her eyes. While Zhao Xiao was passionately kissing and caressing her, Shui Yu silently activated the special ability of her vessel, symbiosis. An imperceptible flash of light gleamed from Shui Yu's earring. Zhao Xiao suddenly felt his body grow tired after kissing the beauty in front of him. His legs felt like jelly. His body, which had been ready and raring to go, now became weak and powerless. He wanted to let go of Shui Yu, but at that moment, Shui Yu actively hugged him tight, trapping him in her embrace. Zhao Xiao finally realized something was wrong. He felt the origin power in his body draining away at a dizzying speed. At this point, the steamy images in his head were gone, and his surroundings plunged into absolute darkness. In the dark, he was imprisoned and sucked dry. Zhao Xiao felt like he had been caught by a giant octopus. He immediately struggled like a weak, helpless damsel, but how could his level 2 strength match Shui Yu's stage 7? Furthermore, once Shui Yu's ability started, it wouldn't stop unless she actively halted it. Even if Shui Yu's target was the real Lin Shi, if Lin Shi didn't have a special countermeasure against her vessel's unique ability, his origin power would inevitably be drained away. Unfortunately, Zhao Xiao wasn't Lin Shi, and Lin Shi wasn't someone easily seduced by beauty. Even in death, Zhao Xiao never expected that a beautiful encounter would turn into a bizarre origin power-draining session by a demoness. While Zhao Xiao was panicking, Shui Yu also noticed something was wrong. This wasn't right. This was completely wrong. If Lin Shi was truly stronger than her and could see through her illusions, he had to be at least stage 8. How could a stage 8 evolver have so little origin power in his body? Zhao Xiao didn't have much origin power to begin with, and in the blink of an eye, it was completely drained by Shui Yu during their engagement. Seeing that the other party wasn't circulating any origin power at all, Shui Yu let go of the dying Zhao Xiao, whose body was nearly sucked dry. Her beautiful eyes widened in disbelief as she demanded, "You're not Lin Shi?" Right before passing out, Zhao Xiao heard Shui Yu's question and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Of course I'm not Lin Shi. So, this woman was targeting Lin Shi all along. Thinking of all the weird things that had happened to him today, Zhao Xiao finally realized he had been played. However, after having his origin power drained, Zhao Xiao's body was too weak. His eyes fluttered shut, and he passed out, unable to answer Shui Yu. His body lay sprawled in the snow like a dead dog. Shui Yu frowned, wiped her mouth, and viciously stomped on Zhao Xiao's crotch. Amidst the agonizing pain, Zhao Xiao jolted awake from his stupor, only to pass out again from the sheer agony. Shui Yu knew she had been played. This Zhao Xiao wasn't Lin Shi at all. The real Lin Shi was standing somewhere, leisurely watching her fool Zhao Xiao like a clown. Shui Yu felt deeply humiliated and furious. But closely following her rage was a creeping fear that slowly engulfed her. The other party had easily played both her and Zhao Xiao in the palm of his hand. This meant he had likely seen through her scheme from the very beginning. But how was that possible? Shui Yu was utterly shocked, her heart filled with unbelievable doubt. The other party's level was absolutely higher than hers. "Could you please listen to my explanation?" Shui Yu's voice was no longer soft and melodious. Instead, it was dry and raspy. Trembling, she was surrounded by fear. It turned out she had mistaken Zhao Xiao for Lin Shi the entire time and had done so many things with him. Now, she realized the real Lin Shi definitely knew everything. Thinking of this, Shui Yu couldn't help but feel a chill run through her entire body, shivering uncontrollably. How could she escape this game? Shui Yu and Qi Sheng both treated this trip as a game. Even if this body died, it wouldn't affect their consciousness in the other world. But to make it here from the Sanlian continent, taking on the identities of two sinners. They had paid a massive price. They had to slaughter their way through countless people in a siege just to get this opportunity. If they completed the mission, they would reap unimaginable wealth and status in their world, and leap to become people standing at the very top. They had barely survived the previous apocalypse, made it through the preparation and waiting period, and painstakingly pushed the mission progress to this stage. How could they willingly accept defeat? If you're sincere, I might not kill you. Lin Shi's voice rang in Shui Yu's ear. Shui Yu's eyes widened. It's you. Shui Yu couldn't be more familiar with Lin Shi's voice. Wasn't this the Lin Tianya she thought was rather foolish and naive? Now, I ask and you answer. If your answers don't satisfy me, I'll kill you. Then head back to your dynasty base and kill your other accomplice. How does that sound, traveler from another world? How did you know? Shui Yu's pupils violently contracted. I'm the one asking the questions, not you. The figure of the Demon King appeared behind Shui Yu. Without her noticing, it had already placed its razor-sharp teeth against the back of her neck. Shui Yu realized in panic that she hadn't even sensed such a massive origin beast sneaking up behind her. Shui Yu's forehead quickly broke out in a cold sweat. What made her even more terrified and uneasy was that Lin Shi already knew about the parallel space. She didn't know how much Lin Shi knew. If she tried to deceive him with information he already had, she absolutely believed Lin Shi would kill her. Shui Yu felt a chilling cold spread from her spine throughout her entire body, making her shiver uncontrollably. Her scalp went numb, as if countless ants were crawling over it. Her initially resolute gaze was now a mess of confusion. There was no trace of confidence or the aura of a victor left. Only fear of the unknown danger and a sense of helplessness in her current situation. It's not that I don't want to tell you. It's just that if you want to know classified information, this body of mine will suffer a backlash from the vessel and self-destruct. My consciousness will immediately detach from this body, and you won't get any answers. Shui Yu didn't dare wipe the sweat streaming down her face and hurriedly explained. One of the rules of using the vessel was that they couldn't reveal the secrets of the San Lian continent to the people of Earth. Don't worry. Before I actively decide to kill you, I won't force you to your death. You just need to answer the questions I can ask. If you can't answer, just stay silent. Lin Shi's calm voice echoed in Shui Yu's ear, audible only to her. However, Lin Shi's tone shifted. If I find out you're deliberately hiding things from me, I'll kill you immediately. Shui Yu couldn't see where Lin Shi was, but she felt the freezing chill at the back of her neck. At the same time, Shui Yu suddenly realized a powerful consciousness was invading her own. Shui Yu knew it was Lin Shi's consciousness. She was terrified that Lin Shi's consciousness was this powerful. Under that terrifying pressure, she didn't dare resist, afraid that the figure behind her would kill her instantly. Forced to connect her consciousness with Lin Shi's, Shui Yu realized in horror that under the sweep of that powerful consciousness, if she had even the slightest thought of lying, Lin Shi would know immediately. For the first time, Shui Yu felt the sheer terror of the man she and Qi Sheng had once looked down upon, thinking he would be easy to handle. First question, tell me, where is your home? This time, Lin Shi's voice echoed directly in Shui Yu's consciousness. Hearing the question, Shui Yu's eyes widened. What the? This question was too vague. Lin Shi obviously didn't want to know exactly where her house was. Instead, he wanted to deduce the situation on the San Lian continent through Shui Yu's place of residence. This was Shui Yu's personal matter and had nothing to do with the secrets of the San Lian continent. Shui Yu opened her mouth, her beautiful eyes trembling continuously. After feeling the increasingly intense killing intent behind her, she finally decided to answer quickly. My home is in New District 3, Xuanwu Street, house number. Lin Shi stayed silent for a moment, seemingly processing the information from Shui Yu's words, then asked again, how old are you? 36. Are you married? Do you have kids? No. Close friends? None either. What do your parents do? Lin Shi's questions, at first glance, seemed completely unrelated to the San Lian continent. But through these trivial questions that seemingly only concerned Shui Yu, Lin Shi had sketched out a comprehensive picture of the social environment and system of the San Lian continent in his mind. The overall environment of the San Lian continent was similar to the Blue Planet, but it also harbored several hidden dangers. For example, regarding a few of Lin Shi's questions about travel, Shuiyu answered with difficulty that she had never left New District 3. New District 3 rarely had visitors from other districts either, because the land between the districts was extremely dangerous. As for what the danger was, Shuiyu couldn't reveal it. The Sanlian continent was no longer divided by nations and ethnicities. There were only distinctions between districts. Everyone had their own specific roles within each district. Furthermore, the people of the Sanlian continent rarely married. If men and women secreted too many hormones, they would still engage in normal intimate behaviors. But they didn't have children. Children on the Sanlian continent were all born in incubators. Every adult was required to periodically submit sperm and eggs to the state. The people living in that world had very weak emotional bonds. They had no parents, children, relatives, or any blood ties. There were only companions, short-term partners, long-term partners, and friends. The society of the Sanlian continent was even more fiercely competitive than the current blue planet. Over there, if you couldn't find a proper job, you would die. After getting a rough understanding of this information, Lin Shi began to ask more important questions. How did you get so strong so quickly in just a few months? Shuiyu, who had relaxed a bit due to Lin Shi's random questions, immediately tensed up again. I relied on an item's help. My teammate and I got stronger together. How many people? Shuiyu held up 2 fingers. This item you mentioned. Do I have something similar? Lin Shi asked. Yes. Lin Shi's questions were getting harder and harder to answer. Shuiyu was anxious. Sweat continuously soaked her hair, only to be frozen into frost by the extremely low temperature. She couldn't help but use her hand to wipe her sweat. Accidentally, her elbow brushed against something soft behind her. She turned her head and saw the Demon King with its massive, razor-sharp teeth. Last question. What kind of ability does that item of yours have? I can't answer this question. Shuiyu's voice trembled even more than before. Does that item have the ability to absorb origin power from people? You can answer yes or no. Yes. Can it absorb the origin power of origin beasts? No. Is your teammate the same as you? Yes. No. It seemed their abilities were similar, but not exactly the same. Can this kind of item generate its own consciousness? Lin Shi asked. No. Shuiyu answered decisively. But she suddenly thought of something, her eyes widening in shock in the darkness, and blurted out, Don't tell me your vessel generated its own consciousness? It seemed she had triggered some critical restriction. Shuiyu clutched her hand and collapsed in agony. She felt as if her hand was being scorched by fire and simultaneously pierced by countless tiny needles. Fortunately, Shuiyu didn't scream out loud. After a long while, Shuiyu gradually recovered. But when she stood up, her eyes were filled with fear and regret. Beside Lin Shi, Lin Tianrui tossed, changed his sleeping position, and went back to sleep. Lin Shi continued to use his spiritual power to speak to Shuiyu. Continue. Lin Shi didn't care what Shuiyu had just gone through. As long as she wasn't dead, he would keep asking. You came for the origin pillar. Yes or no? Shuiyu clutched her head and shook it violently. I can't say any more, she cried out. If I keep touching the limits, my consciousness will be erased. So you're not going to answer me anymore? Shuiyu shook her head resolutely. If Lin Shi killed her, her consciousness could still return to the Sanlian continent through the vessel. But if her consciousness was erased, she would truly die. Therefore, Shuiyu made up her mind. No matter how Lin Shi interrogated her, she wouldn't say another word. She was even prepared for her own death. Lin Shi's cold voice echoed in Shuiyu's mind. All right, then I'll test and see if my spiritual power can erase your consciousness. What? Shuiyu's eyes widened. If he couldn't gather any more information from Shuiyu, then she was useless to him. In that case, Lin Shi viciously surged the spiritual power connected to Shuiyu's mind. Instantly, Shuiyu bled from her nose and ears. Lin Shi's spiritual power wasn't just at the simple stage 8 level. He was only one step away from stage 9. The gap between stage 7 and stage 8 was already a massive chasm, with a spiritual power difference of at least 5 times. And stage 9 was on a completely different level. Lin Shi's spiritual power far exceeded that of a normal stage 7 by at least several dozen times. Shuiyu didn't even make a sound before passing out. The Demon King immediately smashed Shuiyu's beautiful skull with a single paw strike. Her gorgeous head was instantly reduced to a mixture of white bone fragments and red gore. At the same time, the earring Shui Yu wore automatically fell off, preparing to bury itself into the ground. Trying to run? Lin Shi had gotten out of the car at some unknown point. He appeared beside Shui Yu's corpse and quickly reached out to snatch the earring from the mangled flesh. He had noticed this earring early on. The first time he met Shui Yu, Lin Shi discovered that his spiritual power couldn't scan this earring. As for Shui Yu, perhaps confident in her own strength, she hadn't hidden this earring at all. Lin Shi immediately realized this earring was special. It was even trying to escape. The tiny sharp pin pierced into his palm. Lin Shi's palm suddenly stung sharply. He looked down and saw that his palm had been pierced at some point. Fresh blood slowly oozed from the wound. At this moment, he gripped the earring tightly in his hand. It was scorching hot like a burning flame and felt like a sea urchin covered in sharp spikes. A burning, stinging sensation continuously transmitted from his palm. Lin Shi frowned, but despite the pain, he gripped the earring tightly, refusing to let go. Immediately after, he focused his mind, mobilized all the spiritual power in his body, condensed it into an incredibly sharp little needle, and stabbed it into the earring without hesitation. In an instant, a woman's ear-piercing, agonizing scream seemed to echo from within the earring. Just a few seconds later, everything returned to calm. The earring, which had been struggling violently, now seemed to have lost its vitality. It became motionless, completely turning into an inanimate object. Lin Shi recalled that the consciousness had returned to the San Lian continent. Perhaps it was a conspiracy, or it needed to meet certain conditions or time limits to complete. Just now, Lin Shi had used his spiritual power to wipe out the last shred of Shui Yu's consciousness remaining in the earring. Now, this vessel had become masterless. Lin Shi tried to store the earring into his inner space. To his surprise, the space that had always worked flawlessly, even able to store the origin pillar, was now ineffective. He couldn't store it in the space. Because they were both vessels, one vessel couldn't contain another. Lin Shi was a bit surprised, but also found it reasonable. Detected that the host has obtained a low-level vessel. Do you want to use it to upgrade the cornucopia? Yes or no? Note: after upgrading, the damaged spatial function of the cornucopia will be restored. Lin Shi frowned slightly, ignoring the cornucopia's new notification. He was drawn to the new term that appeared on the cornucopia's interface, low-level vessel. Lin Shi sneered softly. So it finally reacted. Acting as if he didn't see the notification on the cornucopia's interface, Lin Shi took out some water to wash the earring and his wound clean, then pocketed the earring. Go back, Demon King. With just a thought, the Demon King immediately returned to the space. Shui Yu's corpse was also casually stored into the space by Lin Shi. After that, Lin Shi walked toward the team of mounts Shui Yu had brought along. Right after Shui Yu's consciousness dissipated, far away at the dynasty base, Qi Sheng suddenly received news from the San Lian continent. Shui Yu's mission failed. Emergency order to retrieve the vessel. Coordinates of the symbiosis vessel obtained. Mission time limit, 7 days. Penalty for mission failure, elimination. Shui Yu was dead? Qi Sheng was lying relaxed on his bed, letting the beauty beside him massage him. But when this news suddenly popped up, he jolted upright. Without even putting on his clothes, he stared intently at the notification displayed on the dark star. His face was full of disbelief, unable to comprehend this reality. Shui Yu was a stage 7 powerhouse, on the same level as him. Could there be some force out there capable of killing her? No way. That's impossible. Qi Sheng muttered to himself. The apocalypse had only been going on for a few months. How could origin beasts evolve to stage 7 so quickly? Qi Sheng felt empty, his mind in chaos. He felt a surge of unease and fear. Overcoming his initial terror, Qi Sheng tried to calm down and analyze the cause. He knew Shui Yu was no ordinary person. Unless she encountered an overwhelmingly powerful enemy or an unimaginable accident, she wouldn't die so easily. Could there be some other unknown danger? Shui Yu had headed toward Xia country and had been gone for 2 days. Factoring in the distance and speed, she should have already entered Xia country's territory. Within Xia country's territory, aside from origin beasts, it could only be a human. At this point in time, besides him and Shui Yu, there was only one person with strength exceeding stage 7, Lin Shi. Lin Shi's name immediately popped into Qi Sheng's mind. Besides him and Shui Yu, only Lin Shi, who also possessed a vessel, had the capability to kill Shui Yu. But how did Lin Shi find Shui Yu? Why did he kill her so mercilessly? With Shui Yu's methods, it was impossible for her to expose her identity immediately. It was also impossible for her to anger Lin Shi so much right upon contact that she couldn't even use symbiosis. Could it be that Shui Yu's identity had been exposed? A myriad of thoughts invaded Qi Sheng's mind, making him increasingly panicked. The two women who had just been serving Qi Sheng were startled when he suddenly stood up. Seeing Qi Sheng standing motionless, a delicate beauty with a soft figure hurriedly approached him. "My king, what's wrong? Come back to bed with me." It was rare for Shui Yu not to be around, so Qi Sheng had chosen the beauties he had long had his eye on in the base to serve him. But at this moment, facing these beauties, he had absolutely no mood for it. His heart was filled only with terror and fear. Like a wounded beast, Qi Sheng roared in anger and, without hesitation, swung his palm, viciously shoving the woman away. He was extremely panicked knowing that something terrible had happened to Shui Yu. Right now, the enemy was unknown, and the mission assigned by the Dark Star made him feel like he was standing before the Grim Reaper's scythe, ready to die at any moment. The Dark Star's elimination was a type of consciousness erasure. Once he died, someone else would inherit the Dark Star and this body. This was the penalty for failing the mission. This palm strike held nothing back. The poor woman was just an ordinary person. How could she withstand such a powerful attack? Like a kite with a broken string, she flew backward, spat out fresh blood, and crashed to the ground, unconscious. Seeing her companion so severely injured, the other woman froze in terror. She stared wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before her, her legs turning to jelly as she huddled on the bed, trembling all over. Not long after, Lin Shi returned to the snowmobile, acting as if he had never left. A quiet night passed. Early the next morning, people found Zhao Xiao frozen in a snowdrift, barely clinging to life. Seeing Zhao Xiao severely injured, everyone immediately took him to the military doctor. Zhao Xiao probably survived because he had previously unlocked his level 2 genes, which enhanced his physique. Otherwise, an ordinary person lying in the freezing snow for a night would have definitely died. The doctor asked for Lin Tianrui's opinion. Lin Tianrui allowed Zhao Xiao to be given gene medicine, which finally saved his life. However, the parts of Zhao Xiao that Shui Yu had stomped to a pulp would never grow back. At the same time, everyone discovered that Shui Yu had disappeared. The people who came with her had also vanished. The fact that Shui Yu and those people had come so close to the official base only to leave left everyone baffled. Lin Tianrui looked at Lin Shi with a gaze full of shock and suspicion. Lin Shi simply gave Lin Tianrui a slight nod. With that, Lin Tianrui immediately understood that Lin Shi was the one who did it. That woman, Shui Yu, had impure motives to begin with, and Lin Tianrui had been extremely wary of her. Everyone returned to the base, while Lin Shi headed back to the Lin family alone, without seeing anyone. Lin Shi returned to his room. He took out the tiny earring he had obtained from Shui Yu and examined it closely. The earring looked like a piece of silver jewelry that had been used for a long time, covered in dirt and grime. The design was simple, just a teardrop-shaped pendant. On the surface, there was nothing unusual about it. He swept his spiritual power over it, but still found nothing. It was as if the earring in Lin Shi's hand was merely his hallucination. Was this a characteristic of the vessel? Or was it due to the special metallic material the vessel was made of? He recalled that the material of the cornucopia before it awakened was very similar to this pendant, but not exactly the same. Regardless, Lin Shi still felt and sensed that this earring looked like a shoddily made product. Rough. If Shui Yu had used this vessel, it proved that it had awakened. But after awakening, this vessel couldn't merge into the body and hide itself. Instead, it looked very crude. A low-level vessel. No wonder the cornucopia scanned it and reported it as a low-level vessel. If vessels had levels, then the cornucopia was definitely higher than low-level. It had to be at least mid-level or high-level, right? Lin Shi examined it in his hand for a while, waiting to see if the cornucopia would pop up a reminder about upgrading. The decision was no. Having obtained this vessel, he had 3 choices. Let the cornucopia upgrade, use it himself, or give it to someone else to use. Using it himself was too dangerous, so that was ruled out first. Letting the cornucopia upgrade also carried certain risks, especially since Lin Shi felt the cornucopia already had its own consciousness. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't move the cornucopia, he would have thrown away this hot potato long ago. How could he let it continue to upgrade and bring even greater danger to himself? So, only the last option remained. Give this earring to someone else to use. First, he needed to find someone who was the easiest to trust or the easiest to control. He also wanted to use this earring to gather more information about the Sanlian continent. The person using this vessel would need to recount their experience and the changes after opening the vessel to him. Next, if the user's body was taken over by another consciousness from the Sanlian continent, he could immediately kill them. Therefore, this person couldn't be too important. It was best not to use anyone from the Lin family as a test subject. Of course, after using this origin item, nothing might happen at all. After all, he had already killed Shui Yu's consciousness. Shui Yu's body back on the Sanlian continent must have reacted. So, it was very likely that they wouldn't send anyone else over just to hand Lin Shi their heads on a silver platter. Even a Stage 7 evolver had died by his hands. Anyone else coming would be in even greater danger. Naturally, this was just Lin Shi's speculation. As for what the actual situation would be, he still had to test it to find out. Perhaps the Sanlian continent still hadn't given up and would transmit a new consciousness to seize the body. Lin Shi thought for a moment, then quietly left the Lin family again, flying toward the government base. He was thinking about who to find to test this vessel. Lin Shi quietly left the Lin family and headed to the base. He needed to find a few test subjects, people who could become his tools. The requirements were greedy, weak, and easy to control. For example, Zhao Xiao, Su Feifei, Su Qin. Lin Shi knew Zhao Xiao definitely hated his guts. But Zhao Xiao was already a cripple. He had lost his origin power and was no longer an evolver. Even his reproductive ability had been destroyed. Before, Zhao Xiao had strutted around the base full of himself. Now, his fate was hardly any better. It wasn't surprising, and Lin Shi couldn't care less. The others, however, could be used. They were all people who had taken advantage of him in the past. This time, Lin Shi wouldn't show any mercy. Inside the base, Zhao Xiao dragged his feet toward the medical bay, accompanied by his parents. Su Feifei, Huang Miao, and Sun Xiaodong were also there. "Oh God, my son, our Zhao family's bloodline is ruined." Mother Zhao wailed miserably. She had learned of her son's condition after he returned to the base and immediately brought him in for treatment. After the examination and consulting the doctors, knowing that Zhao Zhao's abilities couldn't be restored, she was angry beyond words. Father Zhao slapped his wife across the face. "What are you crying for? He's not dead yet. Are you mourning him?" Compared to Zhao Xiao losing his reproductive ability, Father Zhao was more worried about the fact that his son was now just an ordinary person. Even though the doctor said that as long as Zhao Xiao persistently trained his body through resonance for a few months, he could recover. But how were they supposed to survive those few months? They knew all too well how ordinary people had to live in the base and how they were treated. Slapped, Mother Zhao silently wiped her tears. Suddenly, as if thinking of something, she grabbed onto Su Feifei like a lifeline, tears and snot streaming down her face. "Feifei, whether our family line continues or not all depends on you. You have to try your best." Hearing this, Father Zhao also stared intently at Su Feifei, his eyes shining brightly. Su Feifei hurriedly avoided their gaze, looking awkward. "Auntie, what are you talking about?" I'm not." Zhao Xiao was already a cripple. He was no longer an evolver. Su Feifei had no reason to stay by his side anymore. Given Su Feifei's personality, even if she were pregnant, she would get an abortion. A failed investment required cutting losses immediately. Su Qin, despite having no real relationship with Zhao Xiao, also took 2 steps back, afraid of being clung to by Mother Zhao. Huang Miao followed suit. Zhao Xiao remained silent, but he memorized everyone's reactions. He clenched his fists tightly. It was all because of Shui Yu and Lin Shi. He swore he would get his revenge and wash away this humiliation. Zhao Xiao still thought Shui Yu had run away, unaware that she had already died in Lin Shi's space, and that he would never be able to get his revenge. Everyone had their own thoughts, and was preparing to part ways when a figure appeared at the end of the hallway. Seeing that person, Zhao Zhao's eyes turned bloodshot. Gritting his teeth, he shouted the person's name. Lin Shi. Lin Shi narrowed his eyes and smiled. Having a good afternoon, everyone? In stark contrast to Zhao Zhao's reaction, Su Feifei and the others' eyes lit up when they saw Lin Shi. His identity as a member of a hidden family, combined with his stage 3 strength, or so they thought, made Lin Shi look as appealing as a delicious feast in their eyes. They were more than ready to suck up to him. Lin Shi, did you come to see us? Su Feifei skipped over to Lin Shi, intending to grab his arm, but remembering that Lin Shi didn't like physical contact, she placed her hand on his back instead. Su Qin's gaze toward Lin Shi was also filled with a strange look. For some reason, ever since meeting Lin Shi 3 days ago, Su Qin had been dreaming about him for the past 2 days. She dreamed that they had gone back to their school days, back when Lin Shi hadn't transferred schools yet. Zhao Xiao, Su Feifei, Huang Miao, Sun Xiaodong. The 5 of them were Lin Shi's best friends. Back in high school, Lin Shi was very generous and treated them like family. Whatever they wanted, wherever they wanted to go, Lin Shi took care of it all. In the dream, Lin Shi's aura wasn't as captivating as it was now, but his handsome looks were still very attractive to Su Qin. Because of this, Su Qin deliberately approached Lin Shi, creating opportunities for physical contact. Hearing the people around them tease that they were a couple gave Su Qin a sense of satisfaction. She and Su Feifei were always competing with each other. It was just that Su Feifei liked to cast a wide net, while she only needed one person and would be devoted. Unfortunately, in the dream, Lin Shi was rather foolish. He was good to everyone and only knew how to throw money around. Therefore, when she woke up, she hadn't decided to be with Lin Shi either. The images from the dream kept playing in Su Qin's mind like a movie. Finally, she pulled her thoughts back to reality. Seeing Lin Shi standing in front of her, her heart inexplicably beat faster. Right now, Lin Shi exuded a special charm that made Su Qin involuntarily drawn to him. She thought to herself that she absolutely couldn't let Su Feifei snatch him away. Su Qin quickly stepped closer to Lin Shi. When his gaze turned toward her, she gently brushed her hair back, a graceful and alluring gesture. Lin Shi, do you still remember my name? I'm Su Qin. Su Qin's voice was soft and pleasant, mixed with a hint of shyness and subtle anticipation. I remember. Lin Shi looked at Su Qin. Compared to Su Feifei, Su Qin seemed more suitable to be a test subject. At the very least, Su Qin wasn't as scheming as Su Feifei. Seeing this, Huang Miao and Sun Xiaodong happily hurried over, smiling and greeting Lin Shi. Over the past 2 days, by clinging to Lin Shi's name, they had enjoyed many special privileges in the base. Ever since people found out they were connected to the Lin family base, all sorts of perks kept coming their way. For example, when they went to the base cafeteria, the lunch lady whose hands always shook was suddenly steady, giving them huge portions of food. But when Sun Xiaodong saw Zhao Xiao still standing there in a daze without any reaction, he was a bit surprised. He kindly reminded him, "Brother Zhao, look. It's Brother Lin." Saying that, Sun Xiaodong turned his head. But when he looked back, he saw that Zhao Zhao's gaze toward Lin Shi was absolutely terrifying. Zhao Zhao's face darkened as he stepped forward and confronted Lin Shi. "Did you tell Shuiyu that I was Lin Shi?" The others didn't understand what Zhao Xiao was talking about. Only Lin Shi kept smiling, his expression unchanged, his tone chillingly calm. "So what if I did? Do you want to die right now?"